Welcome back, everyone. Congratulations to the award winners. We do not have our first speaker here yet. He's at Piccadilly, and so he's on his way. And so we're going to rejuggle slightly the program and just play it by ear in the first morning session. Now, we do have, for the second part of the first morning session, the founder and chief executive of Hortigold from the Netherlands, to speak about, under new crop opportunities, tomatoes grown horizontally in greenhouse cells. And he is Willem Jonkman, and welcome to you, and thank you for your flexibility in allowing us to start with you. We'll see how we deal with the discussion session, but I hope we've got all four speakers for the second half of the first morning session, and then we'll try and do it from there. Got the slides up and everything else okay, technically? Willem, thank you very much.
Good morning. I thought I have some more time to prepare myself, but go for the lines right away. Welcome, great to have this opportunity to talk about new crop opportunities. My name is Willem Jonkman, and I'm the founder and CEO of Hortigold. Originally, we are a technical company, and we made life safety systems, power supplies without inrush, and we slowly got, just before Corona, involved in tomatoes, because we thought we were going to make lights. Because when we made lights, you have to test them. Then we took the tomatoes to test them, and we watered them without any knowledge at all, and they started to grow, and they started to get a delicious taste. We started to get a high harvest. And that's how we started what we call the next generation greenhouse solutions. Why New Horizon is what I'll try to let you discover in the next sheets. We believe that new solutions are needed to allow us to feed the world. Thinking food and not technology is crucial in that, and develop solutions that work both from an economically point of view as well as from a biological point of view. Not technology in the first place, deciding how your crops are growing, but the plant. Let him decide how to grow. If you want to have a plant to make his own decisions to grow better and to be a top sporter or a champion, it requires sensors to look how he's behaving and reacting. Of course, taking the tomato is a lot easier than a lot of other crops, but essentially is that the sensors are measuring what he is doing. On this approach, for example, with cocktail tomatoes, we managed to improve the yield to above 100 kilograms per square meter a year. Compare it to a good grower in the Netherlands, who will do 48 to 50 kilograms of this tomato per square meter a year. Our new horizon farm, taking the best of both worlds, making it simple and cost efficient like a greenhouse. We are less than 10% per square meter growing space versus a normal vertical farm cost. Leverage all operational aspects to safeguard operation. We applied the control environment learnings for vertical farms by making it modular and integrate everything we do from our sensors as well as all other elements that need to be controlled. We also ensure full year and weather independent, week after week, year-round, stable harvest. Ideal for employment. Your people are every week doing the same job. And as well for your clients. You can predict your harvest and make easier contracts on long term. We put our modular cells within building, if possible, mostly too expensive. We think about greenhouses, which are more or less more and more getting empty in the Netherlands. Also, a greenhouse is an easy to build construction, mostly for the best price. Now I'm going a little bit wrong. Our system operates horizontally, where we grow continuously. By rerouting after a last harvest, we put substrate under the plant, he gets new roots, and then we cut it after a couple of weeks. We do that twice or 3 times a year. On this way, the plant keeps on crawling around. So you don't seed a new plant, but you keep him young, and he will go on and go on and go on. You can do that with a tomato. A tomato originally crawls over the ground. 60, 70 years ago, we put them on a line to grow up. That was for easy harvesting, but it's not the optimal way to work. And what we also do with our tomatoes, we can light the head different as the middle and the finishing harvest by segmented lighting. And we do specific nutritions. We measure what's going in, we measure what's coming in the drain, so we know what he's eating and we know what we have to feed on. The system allows us to step change the yield as well, step change operational cost. Each crop is having its own software, or we call it recipe. Although tomatoes all types of tomatoes grow in the same greenhouse, the difference between the climate to the optimal growing and an optimal harvest is you need a completely different approach in your recipes. There are small changes. It can be 1 or 2 degrees. It can be 3 or 5% humidity. Changes in the lighting time. It can be different in how we give them nutrition. Sometimes it's nice to have your 4 o'clock cup of soup. So give them a little boost. During the day, the clouds are passing, not every day, but often it happens. And the plant needs to be on alert. So his guard cells are not getting any time to start sleeping. Also, we found out by using artificial intelligence that you can overgrow a plant because the software is making him faster, better, and better, and better. And then comes the moment he collapses. If you reach that, it's end of the game. You have to start all over again. So by doing too much software and too much technology, you also can kill a plant. Certainly a plant which has to grow for many years. That is the difference compared to salads or herbs. A tomato can do top sport, but to a limit. We also do other crops. We did do cucumbers, we did do bell peppers. We have done hop. Hop is maybe a strange thing. Everybody maybe knows about hop. It's going in the free field on lines, about 8 to 10 meters high. Hop is essential for making beer. And there is also a huge problem in the hop world. There's about 78,000 square hectares of hop in the world, 27,000 in Germany, most of it in the United States, a little bit in the UK, in Czechia, Australia, Brazil. Last year, the hop harvest was in Germany 35% less. That's an awful lot. This year, it's again less than last year. Why? Climate change, sickness, molds. If you have hop, you have to put pesticide on it every second week. Every second week. You're passing with a little truck through it. So the diesel fumes, the heavy metals. And hop takes in very easily heavy metals and pesticides. And that comes into your beer. There is a new law coming in Europe that I think in about 2 or 2.5 years, you must put on your bottle of beer what's in it. So it says water, hop, the next pesticides, heavy metals. So we started to try hop. Nobody knows how to do hop inside. Really, nobody. We did it. We can do up to 3 harvests a year, completely clean. No pesticides, no metal. That's indoor farm. And that are the challenges we are facing. We have to learn a lot more regarding hop, but we are getting there. And we are getting slowly the interest of the hop industry. More and more visitors are coming over. Key metrics, and that is before optimization. A yield of 2 to 3 times per square meter on tomatoes. Higher pricing opportunities because the quality is unbelievable high. The taste, really old-fashioned tomatoes. If you make a tomato soup with our tomatoes, you don't have to put any herbs in it. It just tastes delicious. And you keep on eating on it. We have about 3 times more vitamin C. Minerals are much higher. And the taste, I keep on saying it. I think in our system it's less expensive. The labor dependence is a lot easier because you need your people every week, year-round, stable, consistent. We have a relative low capex. We do an optimal land use. We have CO2 negative compared to greenhouses. We do use CO2. CO2 is important for the plants. We have 50% lower carbon footprint, even that we use a lot of energy. It's still 20% less. Completely free of pesticides, less water, no wastewater. We have a better taste, higher average shell life. We have a shell life at this moment 5 to 6 weeks. That's very long. The negative thing is that the stem, if you have a bunch of tomatoes, is drying out, but the tomato itself stays marvelous. No contamination. We get a lot of visitors on our site. Weekly, in between 10 to 40 people are visiting us. And that's going for the past almost 3 years. We still don't have any contamination, no sickness, nothing. Of course, we disinfect the air in our cells, and that is a continuously ongoing thing. I hope I've given you a very short explanation of our new Horizon system and its potential. We are building the first cells as we speak in the Middle East and strongly believe in its potential to produce more food in a more sustainable way, while also making it both commercially and operational feasible. Please reach out to me today or via my email. And one small thing, if you look to marketing, we are very good at marketing. We don't even have a website, but he will come. Thank you.
Thank you. I have to say, wow, that is some really interesting research and clearly with enormous potential. Our next speaker, and we're juggling this morning, so I'm very grateful that he's here already. Started in the family that founded Tyrrell's Crisps, and then developed the Chase Distillery before founding Baz & Co. in Britain. His big idea is Basil for cosmetics, and he is James Dashwood Chase. James.
Francesca and the team for hosting us today. My name is James Dashwood Chase, and I'm from Baz & Co. We are a male skincare lineup. So yeah, hi to you all. I, in a sense, am a brand founder, but the experiences of growing up on a humble farm in Herefordshire immensely shaped who I am. And as we all know, the older you get, the more those experiences really enrich your life and shape your values to what you behold. We were always potato farmers in Herefordshire. I'll talk about soil once in this talk, but it is immensely rich and fertile, and has made us to create many brands from telling that story. The first brand that we created in the early noughties was Tyrrell's Crisps. Our tagline was, it wasn't unusual for a potato to be picked in the morning and to be made in a crisp by the afternoon. Crisps are the start of our unhealthy business, but it was incredibly successful, and I'm incredibly proud to see a household brand that we created on Tyrrell's Court Farm, and that brand still stays on our family property and are exported all around the world. From crisps, we started traveling lots. We bought a lot of fries from America, the home of deep fat frying, and America shapes a lot of our trends on a global level. Out there, eating lots of crisps and then drinking lots of craft spirits. Barack Obama pulled down the legislation for craft distilling, and the boom of breweries and distilleries mushroomed out of America around the financial crisis of 2008. So the two obviously go hand in hand. We came back, we realized we had a huge surplus of smaller potatoes, too small for the crisps, so we fed them to the cows. But we decided with my father that we'd build a distillery to use up those smaller potatoes into a brand that would become Chase, which is our surname. And Chase Distillery was born in 2008 with the potato vodka, and then going on into gin, which, as we've all seen in recent years, gin has seen a huge flux. It probably wouldn't be unusual for Richard to be distilling a gin underneath his table. There are so many brands on the market. But I always say ships rise with the tide, and as we're going to chat about later, you need competitors in a marketplace to build conversation and to get buyers onto your side. It was through Chase Distillery that I had the luxury of traveling the world, visiting many fancy cocktail bars, probably drinking a little bit too much, and really traveling the world and getting a sense of tastes and flavors. We agreed as a board to find a partner for the business once the gin market had reached full saturation. And in March 21, agreed a deal to partner the brand with Diageo, a global leader in spirits with brands such as Guinness and Smirnoff. But it was through that journey into the end that we really had to start innovating. We were one of very few brands that made gin from scratch. A lot of gin distillers will buy in a neutral grain spirit, redistill and craft it as craft, whereas we probably worked a bit too hard, and that's the farmer within us. That really led for some of the inspiration. We wanted to create a gin that was truly single estate, and I was researching about vertical farming, and not only would we grow the potatoes on the farm, we would also grow the botanicals or some of the herbs in these vertical farms. But we sold the brand to Diageo, and that kind of led me on to get going with Baz & Co. So Baz & Co, we are trying to grow a new future for male self-care through the most potent and powerful ingredients with a simple routine, from farm to face. Realizing that I probably wasn't best suited for corporate life at Diageo, and after drinking too much, health and well-being for myself was utmost importance. And I think everybody that crosses over into their 30s and 40s, self-care is so important in today's age, marked with recent trends of COVID and the NHS crisis. We're all trying to do our bit, and for me, it's preventative healthcare. I spotted a gap in the market for male self-care, for releasing a brand that was all natural, that was good for you, but ultimately did storytelling very well. I really agree that men need to have a bit of storytelling. My wife sees something on Instagram and buys it straight away, whereas I like personally to look at a little bit more behind the brand. And COVID really ignited the male skincare market because we were looking at ourselves in front of a computer screen so often. It was important for us to look and feel a bit more confident within ourselves. And certainly for me, having a morning routine and looking after myself a bit more gives me that 1% I need to maybe go into that meeting with a bit more vigor or confidence to get the result that I want. But men face a challenge of being quite intimidated when they're shopping, which leads for the optimal rise for a D2C brand to come through. So Baz & Co ultimately operates direct to consumer with a few retail markets plus Amazon. We aim to be with a 30 to 55-year-old male. They're often urban living, but we really believe that they're active and they're on the go, and they really like to start looking after themselves. And I know in my case, my wife banned me from using her own skincare, so they're starting to have brands that speak to them. And brands really are there to make you feel great. People buy brands for the way that they make them feel. And with Baz & Co, we want to not only influence them maybe to go to the gym, but to maybe have a salad for lunch. And I think it's part of those events that really help that. So, down to the manufacturing. Unlike previous businesses where we've worked too hard, often for an unfair advantage, I've partnered up with the Jones Food Co, and see James in the audience today has been our basil supplier. Why basil? Well, not only does the word in Greek basilicus mean king, it's super packed full of anti-inflammatory properties and high acting as an antiseptic. Also great for inflammation. So baz is our leading herb. In the case of Chase being the potato, blokes are very simple, and baz is a very easy thing to understand. So not just for pesto, for putting on your pizza. Basil has been used for centuries as a form of skincare. We then formulate down in Bridport. We're part of the Leaping Bunny and Cosmos authority that makes our products all natural. But for me, that storytelling is immensely important, using 95% less water than conventional farming and 0 herbicides or pesticides. And these are really easy messages for men to understand. This is a little bit about our journey. We launched in October last year. We're in prestigious accounts such as John Bell and Croydon. We trade directly with Amazon both in the UK and the USA. Amazon USA has 142 million active beauty buyers. So the market for us is infinitely available, but trading directly is fantastic because I know who my customer is, what their needs and wants are, and when they're next likely to order. The margins are also fantastic. Fortnum & Mason's also took on the brand, so not only discovering the Scotch egg, they're now at the forefront of championing men's skincare. And then in April this year, we reached our 10,000th customer trading directly. And future goals are to hopefully partner with people like M&S, who are really trying to increase their beauty program, Space NK, and places like John Lewis. Gifting is about 25% of our business. The opportunity is huge, 500-odd billion pound market, but the men's grooming section is still relatively small, and we're trying to grow with that. And just as I was saying about earlier, ships rise with the tide. So Baz & Co needs these other competitors in the marketplace. Just like Fevertree had with Schweppes and premiumizing a market, we're trying to take what Bulldog and some of these other brands like Nivea and Dove. We're off to the Rugby World Cup this weekend, and Dove are such an active partner sponsoring rugby, which is extraordinary that they're now trying to get into these guys have the money and the bandwidth to make it more into popular culture. So then we can premiumize at the top end. This is our innovation pipeline. For me, being a fair-skinned chap and with little hair on my head, SPF is incredibly important, but it's one that we're trying to do 100% natural. Soap bars are very important. We're trying to figure out what other botanicals that we can source from the Jones Food Company to incorporate into that soap bar. And we just launched a natural deodorant. So gone are the days of tough, all-natural deodorants that pull your armpit hair out. We formulated a spray that is very effective. Press is fantastic for us, and they love the art of storytelling, and this vertical farm piece really opens the door to speaking to them, which I found absolutely fascinating. And we're part of the Walpole Brands of Tomorrow, which champion luxury British craft brands who have people like Bentley Motor Cars signing up to them, but they also have a program where they bring through brands of tomorrow. So people like Private White, Bremont Watches, and Allbar Brown, they recognize the importance of sustainable farming. And then our reviews are the key thing that drive our business forward. Men all over the UK and beyond go about their day with a lot more vigor and confidence and smell great because of the work that we're doing to make it easier for them to buy all-male natural skincare products. Thank you so much for listening to me today. These are my contact details. Drop me a message anytime. It'd be lovely to meet you all. And thank you so much. It's such a lovely industry to come into, and I think the support of you all here today just is credit to that. So thank you so much, and thank you to Zenith. Yeah.
David? Thanks very much, James. Another new dimension to the industry, and a very exciting one too, with a great personal story. We next go back to the first of the speakers for this session, who has a PhD in plant biotechnology and co-founded Urban Kisan in India, where he's Chief Scientific Officer. Urban Kisan was awarded Startup of the Year by the Economic Times in India in 2021, and his case is for saffron, for added value. Dr. Sairam Palichala. Sairam.
Good morning, everyone. I'm very proud to be part of this Vertical Farming World Congress. Thank you, Zenith, for the yesterday's award for the best new crop innovations. That was for the okra. We bred a new variety of okra exclusive for the vertical farming. Now I'm going to introduce another interesting crop, the saffron. The saffron, I'm sure most of you might be aware, is called king of spices. It's one of the most expensive spices. So 1 kilogram of saffron costs over $3,000 US dollars. So it's that expensive. So, but it's a very tricky crop to grow. This is a temperate crop. Primarily, this crop is being grown in Iran and some parts of India. So this is actually the stigma part of the flower. For about 1 pound of saffron is equal to 75,000 flowers. That's why it is very expensive. It has a lot of connection with India. So Indian Kashmir saffron is a very famous for its flavor and special aroma. It has roots, actually, the connections with Vedic period. It has been used as cuisine and also as medicines in Ayurveda. So India, actually, the annual demand is about 100 tons of saffron, but it only produces 20 tons of it. So as I mentioned, this is a tropical crop, but it's too small to say it's a tropical crop. It's actually very tricky climatic condition. So India has a long tropical belt of Himalayas, but it can be grown only a small area of about 4,000 hectares, not beyond that. They tried a lot to expand this crop in the other parts of the tropical belts, but it doesn't work really. Because of the period, how much temperatures and how long it has to be there is something which is very, very important. So the saffron is actually a bulb which stays in the under the soil, and only during August it sprouts, gives the leaves and then flowers. And by December you have the snowfall and it is covered. And when the snow melts, you don't see anything on the floor. I mean, it's just soil, everything gone below the ground. And until next August, it's just a barren field. That's how it grows. So the temperatures and light and many of these factors play a key role for its germination and the flowering, and also the quality of the flower. So the vertical farming of saffron is known to some extent, where in Iran and other parts, so they take the bulbs out and put them in vertical stakes where it flowers. So since there is a favorable climate condition, it's a native growing area, so you just put it under the in a stacked condition, and it flowers. It doesn't require any special light conditions or anything. Just make sure that the climate is in sync with outside in the native places. People do it because otherwise it's a very laborious act to go and pick the flowers. And if any delay in picking the flowers damage the quality of the saffron. So that's why they do it like this. So what we have done is a little beyond that. We did it in completely tropical area in the Deccan Plateau of India, the southern India, where saffron is never grown. So we created kind of mimic the conditions to then get the bulb germinate and give the flowers. And we could create the conditions like carbon dioxide and oxygen ratios in such a way that, and humidity in such a way that the quality of saffron is retained at the best as A++ grade. So, and then what also the very important, the key, the research what we have conducted is the multiplication of the bulb. This is the key. This is extremely important thing. So, because without this technology in place, this entire saffron growing economically is not viable. Because the bulb, farmers actually, they sow it under the soil, and that goes for 10 to 15 years. It keep giving flowers. You don't need to take up sowings. So, but when we have to do it in vertical farming, you have to dig and take these bulbs. The cost of the bulbs is extremely high. So it's almost the same cost of, or maybe a higher cost than the flowers, the saffron it produces. It doesn't really work. So that's where like we have paid attention on this one, and we're able to get the very good quality of the bulbs, meaning the size of the bulb is critical. If the bulb size is below 10 grams, it doesn't flower, it only gives leaves. So the size of the bulb should be above 10 grams, then only it flowers. So getting the right size of the bulb is the key. And second important innovation what we made is, as I said that, when out of 12 months in a year, like the only 1 month you see the flowers coming up in this crop. So it has a very heavy dormancy the condition. So far there is no report where how the dormancy can be broken. So what we thought is like, since we are now anyways growing in created conditions, so outside its native environment, and it is only like the germination, flower, leaf, bulb production, it's only about 3 to 3.5 months. So if we can break the dormancy, so we can even increase the number of cycles per year, which would really add value to the commercial advantage of this crop. So we could achieve this, and we could break the dormancy, and so far like we could achieve the 3 cycles of flower production in our laboratory conditions. So we are still working on getting the bulb size a little more, from 12 grams to 18 grams, where you can get that more flowers per bulb. Rather than one or 2 flowers per bulb, we can have 3 to 4 flowers per bulb. That proportionately increases the yields and then profitability of it. And we are hoping that by the next season, we will be able to achieve that success also. Just to introduce you about the Urban Kisan. So we started our company in the year 2018 in India. So our principal company, we incorporated in US, and our Indian company is 100% subsidiary to it. So our focus is building neighborhood farms, developing the technology. It's primarily the R&D based company. So we started, our journey is very modest with the small home kits. But very quickly we graduated and moved on to the large-scale farms, the horizontal as well as vertical. Various models of vertical farms we did under greenhouse, also like the indoors. So we expanded. We never wanted to limit to the crops which are like everybody is being worked on. So we wanted to expand our crop portfolio, and we see that very little was worked on these tropical crops. There's a lot more work in the temperate crops, but not so much in the tropical crops, not even the greenhouse crops. The temperate areas, the greenhouse technology, is a very popular. So a lot of breeding was happened, like in favor to this greenhouse, which can be to a great extent adapt to this hydroponic farming. But whereas temperate crops were not like that, very limited controlled environment agriculture. So that is where we focused, and then we started breeding the varieties which are suitable for this vertical farming and hydroponics farming, because we found that the entire architecture of the plant is different actually. So if we select the crops which are selected best performers of the soil, and if you want to adapt that into hydroponics, they may not necessarily perform good. So we have done a very large screenings, but we found very few works good. But they're also not as optimal as what we intend to get that, the highest yields to get the advantage of this vertical and hydroponics farming. So we have focused and developed the few varieties, including in the bell peppers, okra, chilies, and tomatoes. And we also have actually come out with a value-added product, which is a salad bowl, which is tweaked to make it more palatable for the Indian, the taste. And this is now very popular. This is our consumer friend of our business. So on the back end, we have been working on the technologies. So we are fortunate to get a good media attention in the early stage itself, with Forbes and Discovery channels and TechCrunch. And we're also fortunate to have the investors like Y Combinator and BASF. So we are three lucky and I say that diverse founders. So my friend Vihari is a chartered accountant. He looks after the financials of the company, and I'm a biologist. I'm a molecular breeder. I take care of the biology component. My other friend Srinivas is an IT guy. He takes care of the IT needs. So that helped us to really come together and focus on the specialized areas to build the company where we are today. So our primary focus is in developing the technologies. We have been formulating specialized nutrient formulations for these tropical crops. And we also developed the low-cost photosynthetic lights. We found the kind of tweaking required for the tropical crops. And also it is needed to really bring down the capital expenditure of the total setup. And we have generated a lot of data. So we are using the data, and we are now applying this AI to and help the entire farm operations. So thank you very much. So anytime you can reach me out at urbankisan.com. Thank you very much.
Okay, for David. Thank you, Sarah. That was wonderful. Another amazing story. We have David Mezaros now. He's worked with the European Union on renewable energy, smart cities, blockchain, drones, robotics, and AI. He founded SmartCast in 2020 in the Netherlands as an ag-tech disruptor. His current mission is strawberries all year round. From the 2021 Forbes 30 Under 30, Dr. David Mezaros. David. My goodness, I'm glad you're all here. Thank you. He's just flown in this morning.
Hello. Hello, everyone. Thanks for the nice introduction. My name is David. I'm the CEO and founder of SmartCast. Unlike most of you, I don't come from the world of agronomy. I actually have 0 green fingers, as they say in the Netherlands. I come from originally law, so I graduated Doctor of Law for Technology Law and Governance and Compliance of AI and Robotics. And early on in my life and in my career, I always had a passion and love for systems, system integration, automation, and creating lean processes that can improve production lines, essentially. I worked with a lot of S&P 500 companies on integrating emerging and nascent technologies into our everyday lives, such as drones, like the introduction mentioned. And this is actually how I came across agriculture. This is how SmartCast was born. I essentially wanted to alleviate poverty in the world. And then my wife, then girlfriend, said, okay, calm down, that's a bit extra. Okay, then I want to feed the people, you know, I don't want any more hungry people in the world. Okay, still a bit ambitious, but okay, already a step better. So essentially, SmartCast was born from a passion towards technology, but at the same time from an altruistic sense of wanting to feed the world. So our motto is food security as a service. What do we mean by that? Well, food security is quite obvious for those of you who work in the sector, but in essence, in the most legal and most rudimentary sense, it consists of 4 main pillars. It's access, availability, utility, and stability. And funnily enough, when you look at a greenhouse or a vertical farm, you also see these tropes returning to you. How fast can you have access to those crops on your crop walk? Is the logistics internally and externally well arranged? Do you have a well balance? Do you have stability within your crop, your climate, your technology, your logistics processes? So essentially, I saw a lot of overlap with my past experience and my past projects with agriculture and how agricultural processes are made. However, I also noticed that this was a sector that received the least amount of innovation in the past 10,000 years. Why 10,000 years? Well, if you quote Henry Ford and you ask people in the early 20th century what people wanted, they wanted faster horses, right? They didn't want cars. So we still grow food in the same way that we grew before. We grew it in soil, we grow it even hydroponically, we grew it in a medium. It's not being magically created in a lab with the drop of a chemical solution. So there hasn't really been a big disruption in the industry, and I would even argue that even vertical farming itself is not a huge disruption to this industry. But all of that aside, we created a company that we refer to as an agri-food portfolio company that essentially encompasses and integrates all the solutions that are found in the world and innovates only where there is a gap in the market. We do not spend money on ceaseless R&D like a lot of our competitors do, but in essence spend the money only where it's needed and focus on commercialization and a way towards profitability. This is also how we came to the realization that growing just microgreens and lettuce is not going to really amount to much. Even though, funnily enough, lettuce makes more money than strawberries, but more on that later. In essence, you have to broaden your horizon when you want to apply a very, very expensive technology to make money out of that very expensive technology. And when it comes to strawberries, we have to realize that there is a capex ratio of minimum 10 to 20 times higher versus a greenhouse, versus when you go horizontal. And that capex ratio keeps increasing the more layers you invest into. We've been now, for a year, busy with 300 concurrent trials into strawberry cultivation. We are doing 10 different varieties at the same time with various different permutations, testing not only technology, but also biology, agronomy. And we have amazing results from these 300 trials. What we notice is that if you try to keep the same plant alive for a prolonged period of time, that strategy is bound to fail. I'm talking about not just having everbearers, but trying to keep the same everbearer alive for 8, 10, 12 months, excuse me, will cause that everbearer to eventually lose its energy and not give you any more fruit. But before you get to that point, it will essentially die to disease outbreaks and all kinds of complications due to climate control. What we notice is that reliance on technology and solutions is the most crucial element of the growing process. Everybody says that if you have a good car but a bad driver, you're not going to get too far. But the reverse is also very much true. If you have an excellent driver, but you put him in a car without an engine, you're also not going to get really far. What we also experienced is that going back to very, very rudimentary methods, growing in soil, growing in a pot, growing in a grow bag, yields much higher results than going NFT or DVC. And when growing in a pot and you use drip irrigation, you can separate the plants and therefore reduce cross-contamination and also reduce any kind of microclimate or irrigation-related problems. Now, I'm not an agronomist, so if I say anything bullshit, apologize. Anything that essentially generates money is that what you have to focus on in a farm. It's not just a nice research project. You don't have to focus on it as what will give me nicer, better plants. If the plant is focusing on keeping the plant alive, it's not going to produce flowers. And even if it produces flowers, it's going to abort the creation of fruits because it tries to maintain balance between the energy maintenance of creating the fruit or creating the plant itself. And this is also something that we have tested. What we realize is that if we focus too much on flower creation, huge amounts of flowers will be created, many, many tens of thousands per few hundred square meters, but the conversion rate will be very, very low. This is due to climate conditions and bad or inadequate lighting conditions. What we've done instead is focused on a plant factory model. This is something that those of you who are in the lettuce industry are very, very familiar with. It's essentially dealing with the plant as a piece of, as if it was in a manufactory. Just goes in, gets processed, comes out, gets harvested. And this is what we've done with strawberries. Essentially, we created multiple flushes and harvest stages, have the strawberries come in, force that first strong flush, sometimes second flush, we have different data on the two strategies, and then see what the results are. Compared to keeping one ever-bearing strawberry alive throughout an entire year, versus having the same ever-bearing strawberry, same variety, under same light, irrigation, nutrition, climate conditions, but having it flush 6 times and then essentially throwing out the strawberry 6 times is an increase of almost 300% in yield. And the reason being is because you push that strawberry, quite literally, to its absolute biological maximum, and you force it to let go of its fruits in the first flush, sometimes second flush, and then you throw out the plant. Essentially what you get is a robust increase. You have much better uniformity, you have much better quality, and you also have to focus less on trying to keep that plant alive for 8, 10, 12 months. Labor costs decrease as well, because the amount of work that your grower and your agronomists have to do on keeping the plant alive and nice and tidy versus really working with the regimen, it becomes more a factory. It becomes more logistically feasible to actually make money out of a strawberry farm. So then the question comes, why not do it with June bearers, right? Because then it's a more ideal plant type for this. Well, June bearers grow with a bigger bush. Then you need bigger distance from the crown to the light. But then you need maybe stronger lights, maybe you need double lights, maybe you need a wider range. We've tested all of this, so we have the answers to all of that. Again, I don't claim to be the expert on this, so I can't tell you this as nicely as our agronomists could. But in essence, there is an almost Pareto perfect ratio between where it's not worth it anymore to grow that plant and to have that recurring, essentially recurring production, to where the OPEX from the increased light and the increased PPFD outweigh the cost of the benefit. Once you reach that, and once you optimize your replanting cycle, which is roughly 6 to 8 per year, depending the crop variety, then you can reach a break-even point. Break-even point with everbearers is approximately 175 grams per flush, and with June bearers, approximately 200 grams per flush. When you reach that break-even point, you start to see something magical in this industry, which not many of us have seen, which is profits. And then you can start to essentially focus on not just high-end, ultra-premium sales of 10, 12, 14 euros or pounds per kilo, but you actually can start focusing on volume-driven business models, which is what we believe in. We strongly believe that strawberries were probably the second push-through in our Darwinistic attempts at trying to make vertical farming work in a population feeding scheme. But we need to continue. We need to continue pushing the limits, and we need to reach a point where staple foods such as wheat and rice can be grown in the same manner. What's very interesting, we've been trialing in the same systems as you see on the screen. This is our Amsterdam laboratory. We've been trialing also hops and garlics, onions, and what's very much interesting is that they grow just the same, super well, very interesting, but you get very strange side effects, different color, different taste, different smell, just something doesn't click. So I don't know if the biology needs to advance, I don't know if the technology needs to advance, I don't know if the growing process or the entire infrastructure around vertical farming needs to advance, but there is definitely the possibility to advance our business model, and when I say our, I mean the royal we, collectively all of us in the industry, to a level where profitability can be reached with unique crops, such as strawberries. What's very interesting, and we've been toying with this in the past 3-4 months, is the question of tissue culture. Tissue culture labs have been around for a while. They've been used also in traditional agriculture for stone fruits, grapes, and so on. And one thing that we use it for is essentially creating our own mother plants, and through selective breeding, strengthening those strawberry varieties indoors. so that we can ensure that only the best varieties create the best offsprings, and essentially in a perfectly controlled environment, the one foreign element that would be the plant imported from a breeder is also removed, so you have a perfect circle with a clean process. Thank you very much.
That'd be great, thanks. Sarah and Willem and James, come and join us. That would be kind. We have a little bit of time. Please do come up, and we're just time for a question or two. If there's a very pressing question, we'll try and ask it. All fascinating presentations and exciting new developments for the industry. My first question is going to be to all of you, if I may, just the state of your business. Where are you up to? David, where are you up to? Are you all in development and research, or are you out there in the market, and what sort of, where have you got to?
So, it's on. So for us, well, I'm going to start the answer from Africa, but I'm going to be quick. For us, the vertical farming is one of our departments, but it's not the whole focus of the business. We're also focusing on field farming and greenhouses, polytunnels, etc. The whole business itself is right now revenue generating, and it's making its way towards profitability.
When can you get there? Next year?
Yeah, next year, definitely.
Really? Okay.
Hopefully already.
And that's operating profitability rather than return on capital?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Yeah.
Return on capital is, for us, an interesting one because we never had private equity. So we don't have VCs, we don't have any such investors. We raised funds through project finance and green bonds, and that's it, essentially.
Okay, thank you. Sarah?
Yeah, we are primarily R&D based company, but now we started our operations and the building farms, and we building farms is not like turnkey kind. This is a partnership things. So we also very recently signed a joint venture for the entire Middle East. Now we are in full sales. We are hoping by this December we will be getting into the profitability. With our technology deployment, and then also.
And how many operating units do you have? You're more than just research, aren't you? Look, your photographs suggested you've got several operating sites.
Yes. So we have 4 R&D operating sites, and we have about 6 acres of production farms, and about 20,000 square feet of indoor production farms. And we are commissioning another 20,000 square feet farm in Muscat, Oman.
Okay, because I was going to ask about international development, because David, you're already international, aren't you? Because
Yes, and we are also deploying smaller units all over the world, which are, some of them are, we call them bait for bigger farms. We essentially test the market through them. We also have a lot of bigger projects in development, but I don't like to talk about something that's not built.
Okay,
yet.
right. And so you're in Muscat. James, what about you? Are you going to get to Amazon in the States as well?
Yeah, we're trading with Amazon, so hopefully tapping into that 140 odd beauty customers. We're part of their premium beauty program. 10,000 customers trading directly here in the UK, plus a handful of specialty customers. So we've been revenue generating since we launched last October.
Right. And break even?
I'd say we're probably another year away. It's totally self-funded.
Yeah.
So just at the crossroads, whether we prove concept and scale or bolt on other brands, we're really just thinking it through.
Okay. Yeah. Willem. Oh, by the way, can we get poll number 13 up? That would be really kind. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we go commercial a little bit at the moment, but next year we have our breakthrough. The second half of next year we are going to be profitable, and well, that's a bit the status of us. Quite simple.
So all very early stages. So what I've done is I've asked which of these 4 you think is the best new crop opportunity. I'm just going to ask a couple of quick audience questions. How many grams of fresh basil, non-dried, go into 100 milliliters of your skin moisturizer?
Gosh, I couldn't possibly say. I know that we started with a huge amount of basil from Jones Food Production, and we were left with a vial that was just under a litre of essential oil. So do the calculations.
Goes a long way.
Goes a long way, but you
Right,
need an awful
okay.
amount for an essential oil.
When growing saffron vertically, is there a possibility to automate the picking of the saffron part from the flower?
I don't think at this juncture it is possible, but yeah, I mean, I'm sure everything is possible to automate. Yeah, it's very tricky because I'm not sure whether the technology is available as of now.
It's probably not worth it. Just because we can, we don't.
Question to you all. What's the biggest lesson and or regret you have from the last 12 months? Biggest lesson or regret?
Regret. Trying to do more crops than you can handle at the moment.
Okay.
And I think I regret that we were looking too long to small things.
Okay. Getting distracted. James.
Fail fast, and if the product's not right as soon as it comes out, it doesn't matter. Get it out in the market, get the consumer feedback in early on, and adapt and change.
Yeah, that's one thing I've found with lots of innovators. They stick to what they're doing too long. They don't adapt quickly enough. Sarah.
Yeah, we try to get into the consumer market in a big way with our own stores, consumer stores, and
Your
things
own
like
stores?
that. Yeah, our own consumer stores. It was very attractive as a consumer, but you know the demand to have more SKUs in the store is very high. So which operationally so intensive, we had to procure from other things and then put it. So we burnt our hands, so we rolled back.
Don't try and do everything.
Yeah.
My biggest regret is trusting turnkey project providers.
Interesting. I mean, one thing is there are an awful lot of people who've got the magic solution, and they can't all be a magic solution, I guess. And let's see what the result is for the poll. What is? I mean, this is a completely unfair thing to say. So the great thing is everybody's got voted. So cosmetics came up top yesterday as a big opportunity, but saffron and strawberries, as well as tomatoes, all get quite a share of votes. So it means probably that the audience thinks that there's opportunity everywhere. And I was going to ask also about beyond today. We've had talk about bell peppers, chilies, hops, onions. Interesting about the off-taste idea. Beyond today, which is the biggest opportunity for the sector? So if leafy greens is the baseline, where next? Is it strawberries?
No. Even from the list, I would say saffron is a bigger opportunity than strawberries.
Saffron is bigger than strawberries?
I would say so, but outside of this list, I would say, and I know it's already a chewed down topic, but I would say cannabis is a massive opportunity because the supply cannot outpace the demand.
Yes, I think once the legislative environment allows social permission, yes. Sarah?
Yeah, saffron is also part of cosmetics. It's primarily used as cosmetics now.
Okay.
And secondly, as the cuisine.
What's the functionality of saffron for cosmetics?
It's skincare. Saffron is used in serums, skin serums.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for me as a brand, I don't want to get pigeonholed into Basil. Whilst the name is Baz & Co., Baz could be an eccentric guy that you knew at school. And
what's very interesting is you've got a king in Baz and you've got a king in saffron. I hadn't recognized that. So the word, both are kings.
Yeah. So I would love to use other herbs, botanicals to grow in there. But for me, I think we've seen the rise of organic food, but having no herbicides or pesticides when you're putting on your face, to men at the very least, is very important.
Yeah. And are you having to communicate basil as a cosmetic? Because I hadn't come across that before, and are men getting it quickly?
I think men are still learning to brush their teeth.
I'm safe.
I think so. For Baz & Co, it's a 4-step routine: body wash, exfoliator, moisturizer, and deodorant. And it's a really easy thing for any man to understand.
And so there are vertical farming events always have far too many men in imbalance in gender. But for all of us, can we get a basil routine? I mean, is it a lifestyle well-being thing?
Yeah, I think taking 10 minutes for yourself every morning sees unprecedented results.
Basil's more effective than some of the other things.
We tried lots of other things. I think I really wanted to pin off on the time developing that gin in vertical farming. Got me to realise basil is an amazing product.
Okay. Fascinating. Yeah.
Pooh, I don't want to be unpolite, but we are talking food and cosmetics. Saffron is, of course, commercially unbelievable interesting. Strawberries, I believe, are unbelievable interesting, are a little bit harder to do than tomatoes, but food is, in my opinion, the most important thing. We have hunger in the world, and I don't think, and I don't want to be unpolite at all, that the people in a lot of countries don't care about their skin. They're hungry, they want to be fat.
So beyond leafy greens,
I believe
you're into wheat and rice and...
Yeah, we really have to look more to products like rice, well, tomatoes, of course, bell peppers, but also other food, what is really important for the food chain.
And what do you think is the prospect? Take us 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. Will vertical farming be a fundamental, meaningful contributor to world hunger?
I think if we don't do the game set to vertical farming, it doesn't matter which way, we're going to need it to feed the world. If we go to 9 billion people, how we want to do it now? It's impossible. And the climate change is really a big thing happening. If you look southern Spain, Tunisia, Morocco, it's dry in the summer, the rain falls in a short time, it's almost impossible to grow. So vertical farm is the only way you can solve this problem, I think.
That is quite a big answer to end this session on. Is Philip with us now? Yes. Great. Okay. Look, thank you very, very much. Sairam, Willem, James, and David. You're very kind and full of interest. So, thank you for that session. That was really, really stimulating. I'm going to see if I have got... So, Philip spoke last night and is with us now, and so I won't need to introduce him again. He's the Chief Executive Officer of Evolve Growing Solutions based here. He's doing lots of work, obviously, in Saudi Arabia with NEOM and the Line and so on. And he's going to talk now about waste, energy, water, food, advancing truly circular production. Dr. Philip Lee.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Yes. Is it working? Oh my goodness. Well, I got delayed this morning on something actually very, very important to this room. We'll announce it properly in a press release, but we've just agreed to fund the final development of a model not dissimilar to yours, Joachim, but not just for plants, but for entire investment programs to get fund managers comfortable with the protocols for investment into circular economy projects, of which vertical farming will sit very centrally, at least in certain projects. And I'm glad to follow this because of a few reasons, and I wish we took more notes. 2014, we're advising Plantagon after a 3-hour presentation about how we're going to save starving people in Soweto, et cetera, to then be the rude person at the back of the room asking, sorry, what are you actually planning to grow? Pak choy. That's wonderful. Sorry to annoy everyone in the room again. What's the nutritional value of pak choy? It's less than iceberg lettuce. And that's where the focus was, great grandiose ideas of how we're going to feed the world, against a background of pak choy, because it'll make more money. In the 2014 conference that we put on in England, the ironic list was, for my presentation, was nutraceuticals, saffron, and marijuana. And not marijuana for social benefits, but because there are drugs for epilepsy in children that are based on marijuana. We helped advise a project in England at British Sugars that do that. I'm going to take you through something that really helps, I think, shape the idea of these presentations is to share ideas. We're not really here to sell our company or services or whatever. So hopefully this will be of interest to you if it works. Can you turn it on? That's fine. Glad it wasn't me. Okay, so the most important thing we think about the development of vertical farming has nothing to do with the technology in vertical farming right now. It's light, it's water, it's nutrients. Okay, understand your industry comes from closed environment chamber technology at universities being spun out. Bit of NASA. Obsession with everything's got to be super, super, extra, super, super clean. Just for the record, 700 million years of solving problems, which the NASA, I believe, scientist lady pointed out yesterday. There will be, I hope, in this industry, a big shift towards biomimicry techniques as you go forwards, because you are creating your own problems. But location, location, location. So I'm not going to go through this. We went through this. It was just in case there was people here this morning that weren't there last night. So you know what we are. We know what we do. So our history in vertical farming, again, lots of interesting stuff, etc. So the purpose of this presentation is location, location, location. Vertical farming features and benefits. Well, we all know the lists. I'm not going to go through them. But one piece of advice, again, most of the vertical farming companies in this room know us very well because we've been ripping your systems to pieces for the last 6 months, is something we never see put forwards, or very rarely put forwards. The most, or one of the most important things, if you could take away from this presentation, is make a greater feature of the ability to speed up and slow down crop production in direct dynamic connection to demand. It's sunny this weekend, the demand for salads goes through the roof. It suddenly then is, the weather changes, and on Friday, now suddenly actually it's going to be darker, the predictions go down. In our core industry, in horticulture, we're dependent on the sun. Even if we've got LED lights in our greenhouses, we'll produce what we produce when we produce it. You guys have the ability to speed up and slow down crop production, and that's something that we have only found in 57 companies, 2 companies actually making a feature of it. So we'd humbly suggest that that's something that is more to do. We know the issues with the current challenges of this industry, high capex. We've been talking about return on investment. Peter, you've been making it very clear here. And of course, okay, Aerofarms has now come out of Chapter 11, which is fantastic. But this is an industry that we deal with investors all the time. And I can assure you, the dot-com bubble of 200 million here, 4 billion there. I was just with Rama of Plenty and $14 billion coming through the pipeline. It's interesting, but it doesn't mean that it's going to make the industry something that, in some ways, it's almost toxic to the development of this industry, in our opinion. So anyway, vertical farming, past, present, and future. So the past, let's grow vertical farms in the middle of cities. I'm a Doctor of Architecture, University of Nottingham. Every other yearbook was pictures of cities with green stuff in it and ETFE and whatever, and it's all pretty and wonderful. But, oh, sorry, I'm going a bit there fast. But at the end of the day, the food production, whatever you guys grow, if you ever get, and I'm sorry to the comment that was made before, and I hope that you're right, if you, and we will certainly need it 10, 15 years from now, if you ever get to 1% of the actual food supply into a city, you guys will be doing amazingly well. So when you face it in a city where there isn't a food distribution process, then you are going against the trends. So now the intent, thank goodness, which we announced in 2014 when we did the conference, is put them outside at food distribution centres or in locations to it, is now to drive it down to places that are like industrial parks, often in proximity to food distribution centres and often places where you can get more green energy, etc. Feeding into the city, like the rest of the food distribution system works, much more efficient. So there's a number of very good projects out there. I'm not going to labour on too much, but I am going to highlight, so David's going to be very pleased in the room, that's an example, and this isn't an example of their technology being better than anybody else's or their building being better, etc. It's simply about how it's positioned. So SmartCas is based at the old Fokker plane factory next to Schiphol Airport. And it's got a Google data center there, it's got KLM catering access, etc. But critically, they produce, and I can't remember the numbers, 25-something megawatts, etc. of power, most of which is destroyed. And so it can't connect to the rest of the grid because it's too expensive to connect it to the grid. So SmartCast's owners very cleverly and very smartly came up with a plan of being able to base their vertical farm at we put it here as free, it's not quite free, but very, very, very low cost power. Heat cooling, CO2 from other processes, data processing from partnerships with Google. This is a good example of best practice present of finding where to put your vertical farms, not what goes on inside the building. The next level beyond that is that this is a food system. When we look at this from retailer point of view in horticulture, and we look at it in alternative proteins and all the other areas that we do with like some Neon, the focus isn't on the food production, it's all focused on the waste and how to make this circular. So that's food waste, green waste, human waste, which you saw a little of yesterday. So what's next? The future, optimal locations. We would urge you guys to look at scenarios and situations where it's low cost or renewable sources of electricity, heat, cooling. Obviously, you can get cooling from adsorption cooling. And I don't care how many lectures we get from light companies about how efficient their lights are, that you're only at about 52, 53% efficiency. The rest is heat. Water, CO2, nutrients, and this is not just raw nutrients, this is biostimulants, this is all the things you can get on that basis, growing media, green packaging, both the fibrous material of green packaging and renewable plastics. In essence, developing a complete circular economy. Now, that's easy when you're talking about Neon. We've got $500 billion in the bank and an empty desert. We can design whatever we want. We can put whatever we want. Hell, we've got a city that's only 200 meters wide and 176 kilometers long. That's always going to be more innovative than anything that we can ever think of. But what exists now already that you could look to start to take advantage of? What sites have the potential of some and potentially could include all of these aspects of food waste, green waste, human waste? Well, wastewater treatment plants. They are on proximity to cities. They're treating the waste from the city. They have AD plants. Used to use huge amounts of land to process waste, all those big round things turning, all that smell. Now they've all moved to, or they're moving towards anaerobic digestion. Gasification technologies. Water processing, both subpotable and potable water. Nutrient recovery technologies. Biochar production as a background to the gasification processes, the packaging, because there's more and more move because of this land and because these are terrorist threat location sites, they are very secure, and the processing of high-risk materials and wastes that can end up being converted by the likes of pyrolysis back into green packaging, which is going to become a massive issue in the next few years, particularly for this industry. The conversion of those old raceways back into green energy of solar and wind. This is happening in numerous sites, and nobody knows about it because nobody talks outside of the sector and industry that they're working in. People often ask, what does Evolve actually do? You know, how can you be across 30 different things at the same time? Because somebody has to be. So we have water processing, and this is subpotable as well as potable water, and low-cost water. The electricity, if electricity does not cross a river or a roadway, it does not enter the national grid. Growing media from biochar, I helped bring biochar, as it's called now, it's terra preta to India, from the Amazon basin to Europe. What was being talked about here by David about things happening with plants, and we don't understand how they're happening. I can assure you, we are lucky enough to engage with the best plant scientists in the world, from NASA down. We don't know how plants grow. We just know the bits that we know. Green packaging, redundant raceways becoming electricity. And so we'll go through a bit further, but I want to drill into the details, which can then go through distribution centres. These are all next to population densities to then be able to circular economy. And this is about this isn't about greenwashing, this is about valorization. This is about making more money, and not that should have any kudos in either direction, but simply we should not take a bite of an apple and then throw the rest of the apple away. You go back to the Victorian era, the word waste didn't mean the word that we use it post-oil. There was no waste. You couldn't afford there to be anything that's wasteful. It is the basis of everything in nature, all biomimicry and all of our human civilization up until we came up with oil, which now, of course, is going. So, sorry, I'm going to go backwards one. So this is Esholt Wastewater Treatment Plant. We spent 18 months taking this plant apart on behalf of Yorkshire Water. They didn't know how much energy they produced or where it went to or how it was moved and etc. We had to do a huge amount of investigation. And so this is the output of it, which hopefully will be entertaining. Please turn the volume up.
Primary focus.
Can you please turn the volume up?
Innovation is a primary focus for Yorkshire Water, part of the Kelder Group, and indeed the wider UK water industry. We believe wastewater treatment works could be integrated with the wider environment and transformed into an innovative, replicable, financially and ecologically viable system based on the principles of the circular economy. This would benefit Kelder, its customers, the environment and the economy. Our overarching vision is to create a totally integrated water, waste and resource recovery system, a model that delivers increased resource productivity, maximises revenue streams and, importantly, focuses on regeneration and sustainability rather than the depletion of natural resources, also known as natural capital. A solution where everything works symbiotically and that can be replicated around Yorkshire, the UK and across the world. Esholt Wastewater Treatment Plant has been selected to showcase and trial this vision. A 120-hectare site on the former estate of Esholt Hall, it is Yorkshire Water's second largest wastewater treatment plant. It currently delivers best-in-class wastewater treatment in Bradford and can generate up to 100% of its own heat and power requirements from the sludge it produces. The wastewater process and the surrounding land, however, is underutilised and presents an exciting opportunity to demonstrate the proposed new operating model. Developing redundant land at Esholt will open up commercial opportunities for industry and new types of intensive agriculture, creating employment and commerce in the local area. Once these industries have been established, there will be strong local demand for energy and the development of a new, advanced power plant. This will not only provide renewable energy for the immediate environs, but also to the wider grid. New commercial partners will then be able to cost-effectively use locally derived heat, nutrients, potable and sub-potable water to meet their operational needs. Production of these new products will in turn be increased through the treatment and processing of these new partners' operational waste outputs. Esholt's heat and energy capabilities will be further enhanced by careful management of the surrounding natural resources for use as biomass fuel. And once all the building blocks are in place, heat, power, water and waste recovery, we propose to further develop the commercial infrastructure so it's capable of sustaining a residential community. Crucially, management of the upland catchment area and the old lagoon will provide long-term flood protection, enhanced biodiversity and amenity value. New treatment technologies will enable new sources of water to be exploited. All this new activity will revitalise existing transport infrastructure to facilitate the natural flow of people, resources and products to and from the site. Esholt will become an attractive proposition for all, economically, socially and environmentally sustainable, all utilising readily available land and resources. The proposed model will totally transform how we think about water and wastewater services. Creating this hub will foster innovation and mutually beneficial partnerships, generating new revenue streams at Esholt. The integrated water, waste and resource recovery model will also create a ripple effect that will lead to the reinvigoration of traditional local industries alongside high-tech and highly specialised enterprises. The model will be replicable in whole or in part at other Kelder sites, creating more jobs, investing in skills and building communities. For Kelder, there are multiple benefits, but look at the bigger picture. What we want to create is something totally different in the UK, something real and tangible. A fully sustainable commercial and community hub at a wastewater treatment plant where everything feeds into and out of each other. There's everything to gain and nothing of value is lost.
So that's great. We can make pretty videos all day long. Hopefully that one is a bit of a juxtaposition against Neon, which is very easy to look at that and go, wow, you can do that. It's great, it's computer animation. That's real. That's 18 months of taking apart a 120-year-old wastewater treatment plant, taking a building that's an old press house, which is a building on 2 levels that's underneath has all these spaces. When we first went into the building, it's full of trees. Oh, sorry, time, right? Another story, another time. The point is, there's a great deal of work that goes into making such a design actually viable, with an intent output to greenhouses, vertical farms, and cold stores. I'll flush through this to get to the value proposition. These are the takeaway core baselines that get us to some of those outputs. Again, just to reiterate the point, the key thing is the value proposition for vertical farming at wastewater treatment plants, both for the vertical farm and the wastewater treatment company, which are PLCs with 40 to 80-year contracts with the government, and they are regulated businesses. Low-cost site rents, low-cost energy. When you have gas CHPs in the rest of the industry, you burn the gas in timing for the advert breaks to make the maximum returns on your spark gap between the price of electricity and the price of gas. A wastewater treatment plant has to burn gas 24 hours a day. Its focus is on treating the human waste. So the price they get for their electricity is similar to what nuclear power stations get without a nuclear power station subsidy. So you could do deals with them where A, the price of electricity is very low. B, if, as we deal with investors and it's all about due diligence and the risk profiling, if the plant breaks down, they have the balance sheet to reinsure on Lloyd's so that they add 0.2 pence a kilowatt to your electricity bill to guarantee the electricity irrelevant to whether the plant operates or not. All of those things only are unlocked because you're dealing with large multi-billion-pound companies. Guaranteed energy supply, insured against failure, as I've just described. Waste heat, which is absorption, cooling utilisation. We did a lot of work with the Canal and River Trust and the Environment Agency so we can cool the LED lights using the waterways that you discharge the water into. They have to be there, otherwise you can't have a wastewater treatment plant. So we did a deal We went through the process of getting the licensing agreement for that. That's huge. Low-cost potable water. Low-cost sub-potable water. And whilst you guys are still on that roller coaster of everything has to be super, super extra, super clean, you will soon come to the realization, in my humble opinion, that that's not actually the right direction. Organically derived CO2. Nutrient recovery, biostimulant production, that's through utilizing of algae systems that create stuff that's more valuable than saffron. High security site, marijuana production. Okay? You're able to process everything on site. These are terrorist threat sites, so they've already paid for the fencing. They've already got the cameras everywhere. They've already got all of those aspects. On-site waste processing, which if you're growing marijuana and you're trying to do this and keep it secure, which we helped with the British Sugars project, and I can tell you twice they found caches of guns outside, once at the sign that says, this marijuana contains no THC, underneath the sign was a cache of guns ready to raid it at the weekend. Fibrous material for organic packaging, pyrolysis-derived plastic packaging, which will become bigger and bigger. Carbon credits value. So look, the value of what you're doing to a water company that is a regulated business that is ultimately owned by investors behind the scenes is the ability to get more steps towards carbon neutrality, which on their government minister to CEO level matters. A lot of other situations that you're looking, even if you're dealing with the retailers, doesn't matter anywhere near as much as it does to a utility company thinking in decades, not in years. And for the VF and the water company. So that's our giveaway. Hopefully that gives some thoughts. Anyone wants to talk to us, then feel free. It's not as easy as it looks, but it is completely achievable. Thank you.
Second. We'll do a couple of quick questions if we've
Sure.
almost run out of time. Can we do poll number 12 just to make sure that we've got the point, and if there are questions. Isholt, how unique is that? Is that best practice in the world? Is that just a one-off in the UK? Is it all live?
It's funny when we say Yorkshire water, we often have to, people think of Yorkshire Dales, so they think it's, it's field stuff. This is Bradford, this is Hull, this is Leeds. Yeah. These are major cities, major old cities. So the move, really the limiting factor to moving is the moving to anaerobic digestion of the process of human waste. Right. And that, since we started this project, which was before lockdown really caused us some issues, but that is now moving already in that direction. It is inevitable that at this stage anaerobic digestion is the way forwards in Europe for
and there are lots of anaerobic digestion plants around.
Yes, but, and as a spin out of this, we did a survey of all the anaerobic digesters in the country, whether they're gas.
How many are there? 5,000?
No, well, of a suitable size to be able to attach growing operations, I think it was about 280. 280, okay. Some of which are gas to grid and some of which are CHP. Okay. The key thing is a wastewater treatment plant has to treat its waste 24 hours a day, so the price it gets for its electricity is very little. The place smells of poo. So when you talk about housing estates, they're a bit of a distance away. Ironically, if I can tell you one quick funny story.
Go on.
There, at this site, I can't show the picture, but there's a tower in the middle of it. And this tower was about 100 years ago or 80 years ago from complaints from the locals about the smell. And so what they did is they built this huge tower and they were putting lavender up through the tower. And then all the staff all went on strike and refused because they couldn't stand the smell of lavender. So,
So let's see, which location is optimal for vertical farming? And so quite a few people are agreeing with you near waste disposal, but, and I guess city edges could include near waste disposal, and then there's some others. Nobody is saying in city centres. So your point is that circularization depends on using, you're working your influence. Circularization depends on reutilizing everything that we waste.
Right now, nearly everything that we do in engineering and everything we do, architecture is vastly further ahead, only really matched by pharmaceutical companies in understanding that there is 700 million years worth of development out there before the Industrial Revolution that may need to be looked at. So we're often trying to describe to clients that there are 5-10 moving parts in a waste system, options. There are 3-4 in a water, there's 7 or 8 in energy of all the options you can use. There's 5,000 in food of what you could do, whether it is fungi, whether it is greenhouses, horticulture, arboriculture, etc. So to this point of where to place, hopefully that number can shift up because the simple reason that it's...
They may not be mutually exclusive. I think that's probably the point, and I've oversimplified.
The point is, what is possible at a wastewater treatment site is simply not well understood because they are very quiet, off the radar places.
So actually there's a relevant question here and then we'll finish. Can these projects take place without government sponsorship and support?
That's a very good question. So that's what our meeting this morning was with these guys that have the capability to wrap the data of the valorization, both commercially and environmentally and carbon credits, of complex projects like this, so that green bonds, which I mentioned earlier, and fund managers can get comfortable with investing in things that have more than one moving part. So if that can be achieved, then no, it doesn't need government support. What it does need, and is a paper that we just published out through some journal, I think it was, was the government should be making the waste treatment plant companies and the water companies do something. It should become a condition of having the licenses. They should, because frankly, there's not many monopolies in the world where you're going to get your money day in, day out, no matter what. And so they need, if anything needs to happen, they need to be compelled to do this. But there is so much interest now from them that it should be less.
So push and pull. Yes. I'm going to say thank you so much to Dr. Philip Lee. That was really fascinating, more insightful content on a big scale for us all. Thank you very much indeed.
You're welcome.
Catch him if you want during the break. Please be back at 11 o'clock. How wonderful. Calm settles. Let's get going, that would be great. So, we now turn to branding and marketing with two speakers who may be quite familiar to you. The first is from Sweden, the co-founder and chief executive officer of Ljusgårda, focusing on competitive pricing and halving the CO2 footprint. He believes he can prove lower emissions at the same time as launching new branding. Andreas Wilhelmsson.
Let's see, can you hear me? Yeah, there we go. All right, how many of you were here last year? Okay, not that many. Okay, so for the ones who were not here, yes, last year, I was, well, not on this stage, but another stage at this event, speaking about energy and how we were able to get both the energy consumption and energy costs down. And that actually suits pretty well with what I'm going to speak with today, because I was sitting in the sofa afterwards and we were speaking about this concept called LCA, and then I said, we are just about to do ours. I'm excited for the results. Well, a lot of work later, we did get the results. So, short about us, for the ones who doesn't know who we are. Let's see if we get this one to move. We did not. Okay, anyway. Technology doesn't seem to be with me. Ironic when you are a vertical farm. But anyway, we are a vertical farm based in Sweden. We have a 7,000 square meter facility where we produce 500 tons of bag lettuce per year. Currently selling to about 1/3 of all the grocery stores in Sweden, and going to push that up to 50% by next year. And then the first factory is fully sold out. And this factory and these 500 tons per year are actually producing at an energy cost of less than €1 per kilo. And one of the reasons we're able to get that low energy cost is the energy price itself. But I spoke about that last year, so that's not my focus now. But the first one is one of the key aspects. That's actually having a low energy consumption. And that is key when you're going to do your LCA of a vertical farm. So this is what we promise our customers. It's 100% Swedish, it's no pesticides, and it's half the carbon footprint compared to what Swedes otherwise find on the shelf, which is imported lettuce, mainly coming from Italy and Spain, getting packaged in Sweden and then shipped out. So together with Michael Martin, who was mentioned a few times yesterday, we started to basically show our facility. So we agreed with Michael that we're going to open up all the data, everything about our facility. You are going to do an LCA, and we're going to publish the results, not knowing if it would look good or not. And I can tell you, that's scary when you agree to publish your result before knowing the results. And we had good confidence when entering into this because we knew that we do have a low energy consumption compared to many others. But when the questions come about how far does your employee travel to the factory, what plastic material do you use, how much steel do you have in the factory, you're like, oh shit, this is going to add up. But luckily, it adds up even more for others. So this is a quick summary of the numbers you saw yesterday on a couple of slides as well, that we are significantly lower, the left bar here, compared to the imported ones that we are competing with in Sweden, which is at 1.4. The funny thing is that the other vertical farms that participated here in this study actually were some of the highest compared here. But when looking through those numbers, it actually tells a story that some of these vertical farms, when you do it too small and too inefficient, actually are even higher. And the reason they are higher is they all focus on the inputs. and this will be a key message for you all here today, except for doing and starting to open up and have transparency. Do not focus too much on your inputs. And I know that's controversial to say, because all the things we hear now is to cut your costs, cut your energy costs, cut your capex, and that's good. But if you focus too much on your input instead of focusing on your output, you are never going to get those LCA numbers that we now have achieved. Because everything you do is divided by the tons coming out of your factory. Our factory uses 5.2 gigawatt hours per year. It's doing this year. It did it 2 years ago as well. 2 years ago, we only did 1/10 of the yield results on average that we're doing now, because the factory didn't work in the beginning. What a shock when doing a large-scale vertical farm. It took 2 years to get it sorted. But now when we have get it sorted, we have this massive amount of volume to divide the same input on, and then we get great figures. And this gives you both good economics and, in this case, also an LCA to be proud of. So you can go out, you can Google Uscorda LCA and see everything about our factory. All the numbers are transparent. The electricity, the nutrition, the mix, everything is transparent in this report laid out by Michael Martin. And this is what we want to stress in this industry, and I think this conference is a good place to do that, to start pushing the transparency on what kind of figures we share. We are open to share everything, so I hope I will get some tough questions on stage here later. So this was my first message for you today, just a quick on the LCA. Then I'm going to speak about our branding that we got an award for yesterday. Super happy for that. But up until recently, we were just a normal salad company, if there is such a thing as a normal salad company. But we started to see, okay, so we have all these incredible benefits with vertical farming, but the consumer doesn't care. They barely react when grabbing a salad. They're just going to take, okay, I'm going to take a red one or blue one. What was on the table last time, I'm going to take that one. So you need to do something that creates a reaction at the consumer. So what we did is that we started our work that ended up with a product brand called Super Normal Greens, because normal is not good enough anymore. So we are playing a lot around with the fact that this salad seems normal until you get to know it. And the funny thing here is that this whole process, this is our bag design. You saw it also a little bit yesterday, but I'm going to skip forward to, we will go back then, to this one. We are everything but normal. When we started this process of finding our new brand, it actually didn't start with salad at all. It started with people going into our company and interviewing our staff, asking them, how is it to work at Uscorda? What are traits of the company? And everybody kept coming back to, we are not normal. And that's actually true. Local suppliers tell us that, the staff tell us that, and of course, me and my crazy co-founder, of course, we are not normal. So this was actually part of the culture. So we were mesmerized when we started to see the result where they grabbed interview material from our staff together with the benefits of the product and created this super normal brand where we make people aware that the normal salad is not pretty good. It's full of pesticides, it's getting so bad in the fridge as soon as you buy it home, all the things that you here are aware of, but we're starting to talk more about the other salad actually and the problems with that, and from that angle lifting up our product. So on the bag itself, we have those 3 things here, and since the LCA is out there, we can now claim on the bag that this is 50% less carbon dioxide per kilo than the other bags you will find in the shelf, because it's mostly imported in Sweden. And for the record, so we are 50% better than imported lettuce. We are roughly the same as Swedish-produced lettuce. So we are not better than Swedish freeland grown, but Swedish freeland grown, it's a very small piece of the year you can get that. And this is how it looks in the shelf. So these are 2 great example to the right here. An interesting thing that we're doing as well is what you see to the left here. That's the price. You see what the other ones are costing around us. well, you don't know Swedish crowns, but 18.95 up to the left there, that's an organic one. 17.95, that's the non-organic one, and we are at 14.95. So we are cheaper than non-organic lettuce for all the stores in Sweden. We are the cheapest lettuce they can buy. Some of the stores doesn't make us the cheapest one to the end consumer. They put the prices on themselves, so they have a huge margin instead. But even the ones who do this, who actually put us at the lowest price, still have a higher margin here due to the lower shelf life, higher shelf life, and with that less waste. So when we are going out to stores today, we only talk about margins. We don't talk about how much water you save or all the vertical farming benefits. We talk about margins. And when we're starting to hit this price point, interesting things are happening. Then you get exposure like this that you see to the right here, because you become a volume product instead of a premium product. So we only have two products. We have this one and a mixed lettuce. Two products in two sizes, so that's 4 SKUs. And those 4 SKUs, with the 1,400 stores that we will be in now from January, that takes 10 tons of lettuce a week in those 1,400 stores with only 2 products. So that's what's happening when you're going mainstream in price. So we are playing a lot with this, both internally and externally, claiming that we are everything but normal. And it's so funny when you have a concept like this, because you can play with it from a copywriting point of view. So this is how we advertise when we are recruiting nowadays. We are looking for super normal people. The salary is normal. We have giveaways that we give to the store. This is a normal bag for a super normal person. You know, you can play so much with this. And I think that's actually, finally, I was meant to put in a couple of extra slides here so you could see it more clearly, but you can state it here that we actually get to do some exposure on the shelf also, just playing with these things. And we are playing with Swedish and English in a Swedish context. So it's Swinglish on the bag, basically. So yeah, so this was a short introduction from me. I'm looking forward to continue this super normal talk with an unbelievable talk that we're going to hear next now and combining them. So thank you very much.
And we look forward to your super normal questions afterwards. Our second speaker in this session has a master's in environmental technology and business, and then did a technology consulting job with IBM, founding Grow Up Farms in 2012, where she's now Chief Brand Officer. Her topic is an unbelievable and probably also supernormal idea, solving the soggy salad dilemma for busy shoppers. Kate Hoffman. Kate.
Thank you very much. This is going to sound like I'm highly blowing smoke up my own arse, but that was the best introduction I've had this week, because I had the privilege on Monday morning of going on national television where I was introduced as a mum of one. And if you'd like to come and talk to me afterwards to hear how that felt, I can tell you, Richard, I'm much more pleased with the introduction that you gave me to be speaking to you all today. So thank you very much for having me here. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm Kate. I'm the founder and Chief Brand Officer at Grow Up Farms. We have a farm in Kent called Pepperness, where we produce a number of different products under 2 different brands, and I'm here to tell you about one of them today, our brand Unbelievable, which you can find all over the country in Tesco. But actually, what I wanted to do was use this opportunity to talk you through how we got to the brand. So everyone's going to have their own business model, their own proposition, whether you're selling salad or anything else. You need to work out how to bring that to market and how to make that fit best for your customer. And so what I wanted to do was talk you through how we got to the brand, because hopefully that process and that thinking, which is not rocket science, by the way, that's other people in my business who do the rocket science. No. R&D bit. But this process of how you actually develop a consumer proposition is something that I think is super important for our industry to think about if we want to make what we do a massive part of how we feed people. So I'm going to talk to you about how we solved the soggy salad dilemma for busy shoppers, because the reality is, so, and again, this is just, I'm speaking in a UK context here, but in the UK, we eat a lot of bagged salad, and people buy it because it's healthy and it's convenient. But everybody hates it for the same reason, which is that it doesn't stay fresh for long enough. And WRAP, the Waste Resources and Action Programme, estimated that people throw away around 35% of the salad that they buy, the bagged salad that they buy in the UK, which in a cost of living crisis, where you're watching every penny that you're spending on your food and how you're going to feed yourself and your family, is a problem not just for food waste, but also for getting good value from your food. So we wanted to look at how we could start to solve that problem. Where do I actually point this to get it to anywhere? I'm not a marketing person. I don't come from a brand background. I co-founded what was then called Grow Up Urban Farms back in 2013. And I'm really passionate about sustainable food, albeit historically that's mostly been on the eating side more than anything else. And what I was really interested in is actually how could we use brand to do something that could really help move the business forward and be a force for good. I started my career working at IBM, but I still don't know how to fix your printer, so please don't ask me. There you go, mum of two actually on this slide, because I've got a dog as well. And my favourite food is artichoke lasagna. So anybody who's worked out how to do artichokes in indoor production, please come and see me, because I'll be a customer. I mean, I'll just buy them all. That would be great. So a little bit about me and why we thought that doing a brand would be a good idea. We also discovered through our conversations with customers, and when I talk about customers, I mean retailers, not consumers, the end buyers. When we were speaking to retailers, what they were saying, well, we love the idea of vertical farming, but how is this going to fit on the shelf? Where is this, how are you going to make it work? Where is it going to sit? And what we realized was that we had to go some way to solving that problem for them. And that's not uncommon. That's what a retailer expects any supplier to do in any category, is to tell them how you can best add value to their category, bring more people in store, help them sell more. And so we wanted to understand the best way to make our fantastic salad as mainstream as possible, because no one's standing in front of the fixture and saying, well, I like that rocket and baby leaf mix, but what I really wish I could buy was a vertically farmed salad. And that is hard for all of us to believe, because I know that we have dedicated our time and our passion and our energy and skills to this industry, but it's just not on consumers' minds when they're in front of the shelf. And so we started to investigate this, doing 4 different kinds of things. And I'll just sort of briefly talk you through what they are. Again, this is quite UK specific. In the UK, there is a company called Kantar that owns all of the data from the supermarkets about who is buying what. So if you really want to understand how people are shopping in the category that you're trying to sell into, you have to buy that data and you have to analyze it. And you have to look and understand what is happening in the category. What are people buying? Where is it moving? What are the trends? And then you can look at that on a retailer by retailer basis, and you say, okay, if I'm working with one particular retailer, what can I help them do differently? We then went out and we talked to shoppers. Not me personally, I'm not allowed to talk to people outside of conferences, but we worked with an agency, and we set up some focus groups. And I got to sit in on those focus groups, and that is mad. Can you imagine people can talk for so long about salad, like just the emotion that they have when they're buying it, what the story is, why they're in the shop, what are they shopping for, what are they feeling, what are they thinking, what are their hopes, dreams, desires, just about bagged salad. But from that, you can really understand, actually, what are the problems that people have when they're shopping, and what could we do that could solve that problem for them? We did some surveys, wanted to really understand what those problems and opportunities looked like. And then we gave people some salad that we'd grown to taste to see what they thought. And we did that in blind taste panels. Where people basically who are trained in organoleptic testing get given 3 different products and they have to score them in different factors, and we found out that actually our salad rates really highly. It rates really highly on its crunchiness and its crispiness, on the fact that it doesn't have a funny chemical smell because we don't wash it in anything. And so we started to identify, okay, what are these features that people actually appreciate when they taste the lettuce? And then what we really wanted to understand was see if we could get a bit more data on, have we got something here that could create a price transformation? Is there something that people are prepared to pay more for? And if they are, how much are they prepared? How much more are they prepared to pay for it? Now, my big caveat on this is that all of this insight is absolutely worth doing, and it builds the business case for why you want to do the brand. Sometimes when you get on the shelf, people, surprise, surprise, behave in a totally different way than they did when they were in a survey. But still really valuable to do and capture that information because that helps you actually understand what is the proposition that you as a business have that can feed into your brand. And I loved what Andreas said just now about the fact that the super normal brand isn't just about their leaves, it's about the culture that they have in the business, because that is the power of a real brand, to actually connect a shopper with not just the product that they're buying, but with the story of how that product has been made. And ultimately, if we want people to make more sustainable choices and more healthy choices about the food that they make, the food that they buy and eat, we have to give them more information. And so the more we can share with them about the business that's behind the food, the better. And so I really loved that story that Andreas told. So what did we find when we spoke to shoppers? Again, this is just in the UK, so I'm not claiming any universality of this, but I'd love to know if other people have done insight, what they came back with. 71% of people told us that they wanted salad that lasted for more than 7 days, because at the moment they feel like when they're buying a bag of salad, they've got to buy it to eat that day or the following day, because otherwise it's just going to go off and they throw it away. And that it actually, they know, 79% of people know that what they've got to buy at the moment, it won't stay fresh for long enough. And because of that, 83% of people chuck away the salad that they buy because it goes off too quickly. And then this was a really interesting thing for us. 64% of shoppers told us that if they knew that they would waste less, if they could be assured, if they could rely on the quality and freshness of what they were buying, they'd buy more and more often. And that's a double whammy, right? So that's saying, well, I'll buy it when I do my weekly shop, but also when I do my top-up shop. But also when I do my weekly shop, I might buy 2 bags instead of 1, because I know that I can keep 1 in the fridge. And that's a big shift in thinking of how people shop currently in the category for salad. And finally, we talk to people about sustainability because it is something that people still care about, and they want to know more about where their food has come from. And I think sort of most importantly, and again, I speak for the landscape in the UK, shoppers want retailers to make the right decision for them. They don't actually want to be stood in front of the shelf and having to choose a more sustainable salad over a less sustainable one. They want the retailer to have done the work so that the better products are there on the shelf for them. And so we again recognize that if you have a brand, you've got a means of communicating that story, that impact, exactly like Andreas was saying. When you've got the data, you can then put that on the pack and communicate that to people. So we did all of that work, and did I just skip 2 slides there? No, fine. We did all of that work, and that led us to Unbelievable. And once you're then on the shelf and you've got the products out there, the advantage you have with being a brand is that you can then continue to talk to your customers and continue to engage them and find out a bit more about how they're using your products, what they think of them, what they think the benefits are, what they think the advantages are. And so I think that the way that we see the opportunity of having a brand here is about being able to then engage with your consumer base, and have that ongoing conversation so that you can make sure that you're still delivering the right thing into the market, which is what the supermarket wants to know, that you're continuing to improve and make things better for the products that you're putting on their shelf. And this is a really, I think most of us will be familiar now with sort of brands and businesses using social media as a way of engaging directly with people. In most categories, the challenge that most small brands have is that direct-to-consumer models and the sort of the coming into focus of social media means that there's a lot of noise from a lot of brands all trying to capture a very small number of shoppers in their category. In the UK, there is one branded before we launched, there was one brand of salad available in national retailers. Everything else was sold as supermarket own label, which means that we had this unique opportunity not to actually have to fight for a lot of share of voice, because there just weren't a lot of other people, a lot of other brands communicating about what they could offer and what their products could do into the market. Now, I don't know what it will be like in other countries. And by the way, this is just in one category, right? So if you're not doing, this is ready-to-eat bagged salad, that's what we do. If you're producing something else, the dynamics in that category in your geography may be totally different. But it's definitely worth having a look to see what the opportunity is to use a brand where there isn't one there or where the market is being underserved. There's another reason for doing it as well, which is that it gives you something to directly show to retailers and talk to them about how you can add value to their category. Because ultimately, every retailer is going to have a different strategy of how they sell salad, how they sell produce, and what they're trying to achieve. And it's been our experience that over the last 12 to 18 months in the UK, retailers have really started to change their thinking about how they see vertical farming and vertically farmed produce fitting into their supply chains and onto their shelf. Excuse me. And so if you can solve that problem for a retailer and say to them, actually, we've spoken to your customers, this is the problem that they need solving, and this is how we're going to solve it for them, you're doing that work for them, and you're giving them a reason to put you on the shelf. That is a really whistle-stop tour of how we developed Unbelievable. And I suppose my point there was not that I think that we've got the solution for what will work in every category, in every market, but that it's a really interesting opportunity that we have as growers who can produce consistent quality and fantastic quality of produce, to think about how brands can be used in the products that we're taking onto the shelf. And I would just like to leave you with their thoughts, and really excited to continue the conversation with Andreas and Richard and see what questions people have. Thank you very much.
Come and let's continue that conversation then. Send up your questions. Yes, we've got lots of mics. Won't need them all. So, as always, I've got quite a lot of my questions, and you're welcome to put up yours. Perhaps we can delete the ones from the last session. Oh no, they're all here. That's great. We've got lots of questions, actually. Right. Well, let's just ask them as they come. Luskoda, do you know how much you gained in the life cycle assessment analysis by being located in Sweden? What would the numbers be if you had average European electricity?
I don't have them on top of my head, but we did gain a lot because the energy mix in Sweden is good, naturally good. So if we were to put it on coal power instead, it would be a lot worse. So it does make a big difference. It does. I don't have the number in my head, but it's also a way for us to keep improving, to do and take even more control of the production.
Okay. Kate, why do you have two brands?
That is a good question. So the brand I showed you, Unbelievable, we launched into Tesco in July this year. And earlier on in the year, in February, we launched our Fresh Leaf Co. brand into Iceland and Food Warehouse stores. So The reason why we have two brands is because they both represent two really different propositions for shoppers on the shelf and in the particular retailers that they're in. And again, I don't know how much this is common across the rest of Europe, rest of the world, but certainly in the UK, there's sort of significantly different demographics that will be shopping in different places, and so what they're looking for when they're in a specific retailer will be slightly different. It also allows us to add in some tiering into what we do. Be sort of the problem that we have is that it's quite hard to make our product worse. So we weren't trying to do a sort of premium and value proposition. We wanted everything that we did to be affordable and sustainable. But the Fresh Leaf Co brand allowed us to move very quickly in a tactical way into Iceland, whereas Unbelievable is, I guess, maybe similar to the way you described Supernormal. That's like the sort of embodiment of the business and the culture and our vision.
We're racing away with questions now, so we've got lots and lots and lots. Andreas, do Swedish retailers accept brands more than the UK? Also, how do they feel about your packaging, criticising Field Grown that they also sell?
Oh, this is excellent question. Love this one. So first of all, Sweden have no brands. There is 100% private label before we entered, with one exception in one small chain with 200 stores. They have some Dole in those 200 stores. Otherwise, it's so you have three chains that controls 94% of the market, and each of the chains have one separate brand, basically. So they don't want anything else to go in there. One of the biggest chains in Sweden, called ICA, they are individual store owners. So on a store-by-store level, because centrally, basically, we had a no in the beginning, but we started to prove ourselves store by store, and when they started to see when they started to see the margins go up and the product started to prove itself, then they centrally couldn't say no, especially...
So that's actually quite an important lesson, which is that however big a retailer is, they don't necessarily operate as one entity.
Exactly. So you have three layers. So you have ICA that controls 50% of the market. There you can go bananas, which is funny because that's I love those stores because that's where we get...
Is that a new crop for you?
It could be. But there we can get as much as 1/3 of available shelf space with our two products only. While as with Coop, which is like medium centrally controlled, well, then we usually get our 2 or 4 or 6 faces. While as Axe Food, who is super controlled, you get the 2 faces, and they are the 2 faces you get.
And that's basically how it works everywhere in the UK. So I took a big picture of that slide that you shared, so I can share that with my customers and say, look what they're doing in Sweden. Don't you want to give us some more facings? Yeah, because in the UK it's totally different. The stores will have a planogram. And they will allocate specific spaces on the shelf for products, and you'd be lucky if you get more than 1 or 2 per product per store.
But it's often the case, isn't it, that each store manager has some local discretion?
It totally depends on the retailer and on the interest of the store manager in optimizing what's going on in their store.
Okay, why would retailers choose a branded product compared to their own label, where we assume they have more control and a higher markup?
So be very careful what you assume, would be my first point. And the second thing is because maybe, is it just in fresh that there's no brand, you were saying, in the supermarkets, or is that across all categories?
No, in fruits and among
just
fruits and
produce.
You have Chiquita bananas and that's it.
So I would say in the UK, we're maybe like one step ahead of that, but not far, because generally there's not much brand in produce because a brand has to promise the same quality and consistency every time you buy it, and that's very difficult to do with conventional farming. So whilst supermarkets have seen the value of brand in other categories for a very long time, and it will do different things in different categories, there's just not really been the opportunity in produce to have brands. But when you can deliver that consistency and that quality day in, day out, then a brand can be very valuable because it can deliver you a higher margin, it can increase the offering that you have in store for your customers, and crucially, it can allow you to test something more quickly than if you had to get through the technical and commercial requirements for supermarket-owned labels. So if supermarkets want to move faster on things, they can do that by putting a brand on the shelf rather than waiting to do their own label production. So there's a number of different reasons, and there'll be a different case in each retailer how they want to use brand.
Okay. How long did it take from initial discussions with retailers to on-shelf availability?
Well, so on a store-by-store basic, I think, 2 weeks if you talk to on just one store. Centrally, it takes a lot longer. I would say from first discussion to rolling out. Well, I think with Axe Food it took 1 year. Now when we just signed it with Coop, we're going to roll out now in January, and there it went faster because they saw what Axe Food did.
Exactly.
Okay.
So then it was way easier.
'Cause some people wait for the retailers to come to them,
We
but
did.
that didn't happen because there was no culture of doing that.
No.
I don't know anybody who would sort of, as a base case for their business, sit and wait for the retailers to come to them. But I would certainly agree with Andreas that
In more established branded categories, but not in fresh produce, I think. is
if
the
you've
answer.
already got D2C sales and you can demonstrate demand for your product,
Yeah.
fine. But if you're not selling anything already, you probably have to go knock on some doors.
When was your first discussion with Tesco?
We've been doing this for 10.5 years.
Yeah. When was your actual first discussion with Tesco? Did you go to one of their invited supplier events, or did you start 2 years ago, or was it?
No. We've been doing this for 10.5 years. So
Okay.
when we actually it wasn't when we had the grow up boxes. So I've been a little bit facetious, but when we had Unit 84, which was our first bigger scale farm in London, was the first time that we started talking to retailers. And
Okay, because that's an important point, that it can take a very long time.
but sorry, but just so we're clear, now that we're on the shelf in Tesco, it's going to take all of you a lot less time.
Yeah. Okay. Regarding packaging, why plastic, and how does that reflect on your carbon footprint, Andreas?
I don't have the numbers on top of my head. You can Google it in the LCA. We use bio-PE, so it's most of it's made of bio compounds, so what do you call it, sugar canes, and then some of it is pure plastic. So that's what we're using today, and no gas, so we have the what do you call it, micro holes in instead. So that's what we have today. We would wish it would
100% recyclable?
yeah, you can. It doesn't not as it become biodegradable, but recyclable, absolutely. Okay. And we actually have also, so Swedes can scan our bag with their phone when they're recycling it, and then they get a payback. Actually.
Okay.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so that's a separate company.
What's the app called?
It's called Bowery.
Yeah. They just launched it in the UK for Ocado milk container.
Exactly.
Milk bottles.
So that's something you all
nice.
could. It's a Swedish startup company, so starting to expand.
But you'd like it to be not plastic and no plastic?
I would like it to be. It depends on the Swedish recycling system.
Okay.
So biodegradable is great if the recycling system can handle it. Else it's actually worse, because then you get pieces of your product.
It can corrupt the recycling.
Exactly.
And I think also there's a disappointment if you create a material which then can't be reused, and it may create gases in the environment.
Yeah.
Kate.
So I guess in the interest of being fully transparent, we haven't done a full LCA. What we've done is slightly different. It's a carbon inventory, but because of that, I don't know what the regulations are in Sweden, but because of that, we can't use the data that we have from that on our marketing, because the only thing you're allowed to use is an LCA to back up if you want to make environmental claims on your products. But I can tell you that because of the way that the business is set up and our energy model, our packaging makes up 97% of the embodied carbon in one of our bags. It's incredibly high because everything else is incredibly low.
Wow.
And so that 97% is the actual embodied carbon in our plastic is no different from anybody else's plastic. We use OPP.
So changing your packaging could make a very big difference.
Not in terms of actual kilograms of carbon in the atmosphere. It's just relative to the rest of our operations. Yes. So, but that's I think the reason why we would look to do something different is because shoppers have feelings about plastic and they're worried about it ending up in the ocean, which they're right to be worried about. And so we are looking at alternatives we can use. So there's two reasons, right, to look for plastic alternatives. One is to do with the embodied carbon, but the other is to do with the end of life. At the moment, you can recycle our bags in store with your carrier bags. That's the waste stream. That's the way that the UK have chosen to use the infrastructure to do it. And so an alternative would be to find a material that you could recycle at home. The challenge that we've got is that our product has a fantastically long shelf life. It's always got the longest date code.
What is the shelf life? Because that was one of the questions.
So when you go into a supermarket and see one of our bags, it should always have more than a week from the point of being on the shelf.
Yeah. Okay. And yours is?
So we promise this in the central agreements. We always promise 12 days, which takes account 2 days of traveling. But the thing is, we actually do 16 days and up to more, but we keep it as internal stock.
Okay.
So you can balance the campaigns that way.
Can we have poll number 14, please? And I've got 1 or 2 questions I want to ask based on your presentations. Andreas, you beat the best of greenhouse and imports. You beat the average of greenhouse and imports. Can you beat the best of greenhouse and imports in terms of LCA and footprint?
Good question. I'm not too much into the details, but the short answer would be that an excellent freeland farmer in Sweden would beat us.
Okay.
Because it's everything comes for free. A greenhouse in Sweden is more tricky because you still need to heat it.
Yeah.
So there I would say it's hard for a Swedish greenhouse to compete with us. And as soon as you start go outside of Sweden, transport shoots through the roof.
But the Swedish field farmers aren't producing year-round, are they?
No.
So when we look at our sort of impact across several different metrics, we don't compare it to one type of farm. We compare it to the existing supply chain of the product into the UK on the shelf. So in the UK, between September, October, and March, pretty much everything's imported. Not everything, not anymore, but majority is imported. It's imported from different places. It's grown in different ways. So you have to look at the whole supply chain that you're replacing or competing with, not just any one single farmer, because you're not competing with any one single farmer. Right?
I have to ask you this question, Kate. £100 million on a vertical farm.
That's not a question. That's a statement.
How come? And payback.
It's expensive to build really big sheds that use concrete and steel and have a lot of equipment in them. And these are, the way we think of our farms are like infrastructure assets. You build them, you run them optimally, they last for a very long time, and they produce a great payback over a long period of time. They are not it's not a software business. You're not going to get a 10x return in 3 years.
So does that mean patient investors who really understand what you're doing?
I don't think our investors are any more patient than other similar investors, but they are infrastructure investors. So they do understand returns over a stable long-term returns over, stable low returns over a long-term period of time. They've got people's pension funds. They've got sort of that kind of capital that has a very different returns profile in terms of what it's expecting than venture capital, for example.
And to supply a national retailer, especially Tesco, does that mean you have to create a regional matrix of distribution points? Or can you rely on them as one customer doing all the distribution themselves?
Also, Tesco already have a regional network of distribution.
But you don't need regional manufacturing sites yourself, or you can supply.
No. Like any other supplier, we supply into the different Tesco depots, and from those depots they serve the stores in their area.
Right. Next question was going to be: do you communicate? How do you communicate vertical farming? Do you say anything about vertical farming to the consumers? You talk about being super normal. Does vertical farming resonate in any way, or is it completely irrelevant?
So our first strategy when we started 2017 and started to sell 2018 was that future salad is super scary. So we want to sound and feel like any other farmer. So the word use, Gorda, it sounds like a farm that's been existing for 100 years.
Does it mean something, by the way?
No, not really. If you
It's
directly...
not a place or...
No, it's a made-up word that had no hits on Google before we started.
Oh, that helps.
Yeah. So it's, but directly translated, use is light, and Gorda would be farm. So it's light farm. If you play with the words.
Yes.
But the ring to it is just a random word.
Okay, yeah.
So our idea from the beginning was to sound and feel like a modern farmer, very farmerly. But now we have changed our minds dramatically, because now we're starting to prove the things and we're starting to be able to back up the general claims. So now we are saying we are, as I mentioned, we are everything but normal. So we don't use the word vertical farming, because I hate that word, because it's not so much about building on the height, it's about the controlled environment, which make you able to push the plants further than you could do in free land or greenhouse for that matter.
Okay, interesting.
So if you look at any of our bags, it's not what we're selling. The brand is not selling vertical farming. Unbelievable is selling salad that stays fresher in your fridge. The advantage of having a brand is that you then have other channels for communicating with people. And so if you go and look across our social media, we try and do a lot of taking people behind the scenes and helping them understand how we grow and what the benefits are. But it's not the core of what the brand is about, so it's not the core messaging on the product.
It'd be interesting to see what the poll comes back with, premium brand, mainstream brand or private label, and so mainstream brand gets the majority. But there's quite a sort of different, they're still waiting for private label and premium brand. And in a way, premium brand comes up quite high in that because it has to be less opportunity, but it can be higher margin. Do you have any views on that? Is mainstream brand your solution?
I mean, there's no such thing as one brand having the most potential for vertically farmed, because how you choose your brand and where you position yourself on the shelf depends on what customer and market share you're going after. Okay. There are always people who will pay £5 for a punnet of microgreens, but you'll have to work hard to find them, and the volume that you'll be able to sell is limited. That doesn't mean there's no opportunity to do a fantastic brand in that space. It just depends what your business model is. Okay,
and you've gone down the branded route, and you think that's more rewarding than private label?
Yes, so private label is a valuable option as well. It depends a little bit. I mean, if you get something out of the private label, if you get this famous word offtake agreement, well, then I'm happy to do private label as well, because then you get the secured volume, so you get something for it. But if you get the same price and the consumer doesn't know the difference, then why should you do private label if you get in anyway? Okay. So it depends on what you can get out of that discussion.
I think that the great thing for anybody who's considering branding is that the branding is yours and not your customers. And there is a difference in how you can manage that and you can develop your own identity through it. Last question, very quickly, since we're talking about leafy greens, diversification. Are you avoiding it or are you seeking it? Kate?
We say in Grow Up that if all we ever do is become the world's most successful salad grower, then we will have failed with the opportunity that we've been given, because we have an amazing team, we have fantastic backers, we have the infrastructure in place to grow really fantastic food at an affordable price, and there's so much more to do than just leafy greens.
Great.
So we do 2 types of lettuces so far. In the whole factory, yeah. One green and one red. Together they are a mix, and the green one, a single one, is one product, and the green one grows faster, so also better margin to have the green one stand alone. The next factory is going to have 2 new lettuce products.
Amazing.
I mean, so we go super sharp in large-scale production, but if we look in our R&D, of course, we are playing around a little bit with everything, and just as you said, the long-term vision for me and my co-founder is not to only grow salad, but we are relentlessly focused when it comes to large-scale production of doing one thing at a time, because you can't be a mainstream brand. Well, you could, but then you lose money if you don't get your production costs down. And the only way to push both yields and costs down is to be super focused.
That's a good way to end, actually, because I think that too early diversification has been a problem for a lot of businesses, and focus is always difficult because lots of new things seem so interesting. Kate and Andreas, thank you so much, very much indeed for that.
Thank you.
So our final session is on taking innovation to the next level. And first in our speakers for this session has a Cambridge PhD in development botany. She's Chief Scientific Officer at Vertical Future, where she's involved in, I find this absolutely fascinating, rediscovering pre-industrial age, quality and taste. Dr. Jen Bromley.
Thank you very much for the kind introduction. It's great to be with you here today. Particularly great, thanks Kate for the Mum of One related introductions. I can also add Mum of One here, and unfortunately wasn't here yesterday due to Mum of One issues. So it's great to be back in the community today. So I'm Chief Scientific Officer at Vertical Future. We're a vertical farming technology and data company. We have a lot of R&D that happens in-house. And a lot of plant science. So we have a plant science team of 10 of us, and we spend a lot of our time, doing research work, looking into different varieties and different routes to grow varieties in order to make the best of our systems. So I'm preaching to the converted here. Improving global crop production requires continuous improvement. So the Green Revolution is an amazing example of this. There were varieties bred for yield. It massively revolutionized global productivity in agriculture. The FAO are estimating that there's a 70% increase in global food requirements by 2050 compared to sort of levels at the moment. And for that, we need what's being termed the second green revolution. And this isn't just varieties. We're looking at how we're bringing new varieties but new technologies in. And this is the sort of work that we're really focusing on at Vertical Future. So our main sort of focus, I've used that word quite a lot, is on technology innovation to both reduce the impact and improve crop productivity. And our critical factor that we look at here is you can reduce the impact, you can improve the productivity, but the critical area is do not compromise on product quality. So our innovation pipeline, it's underpinned by foundational science. We have a team of plant biologists, we have a team of engineers who all work together to look at how we bring technology and crop science together. And all this looks at improving various different metrics, things like resource use efficiency, things like carbon embodiment, yield, quality. It's all really important that we focus on these areas. There's a bit of a tagline on this slide. We think that the future is a better, smarter, more sustainable crop production system. Just to add to that, no matter where in the world you are, efficiency and productivity are two of your core drivers. And we believe that the systems and data play a critical role in achieving this. So I've mentioned we're a technology company. 90% of our technology is built in-house. For us, that allows us to really change sort of the game within vertical farming. People have mentioned that it takes a while to get your facility up and running. It doesn't function optimally from day one because you're trying to make everything integrate. By working the way how we are, we've taken everything and we make it work together from the start because we build it all from the start. So all of your automation, all of your seeding lines, all of your robotics, all of your harvesting, the lights, the irrigation systems, all of that we build in-house, and we literally fabricate this stuff from the steel that arrives at our facilities. What we also do within this kind of structure is we are looking to maintain a minimal contact production system. So, people have talked about, so Kate, you were talking about a no-wash product. That's like the holy grail for vertical farming. You've got that opportunity by growing in a very controlled environment to really control what's on your crop, which allows you to achieve these enhanced shelf lives. Making sure that you've got minimal contact points throughout that process is also critical for your food hygiene. And then sort of bringing that technology and that data together is the game changer as well. So for those of you who were here last night, there was an award that Vertical Future won, which I'm incredibly proud of our plant science team for delivering on. We've looked at how you can use, multispectral lighting and control of that multispectral lighting to achieve 24% efficiency gains in terms of your energy conversion into biomass. We've got different nutrient delivery techniques which aim to conserve water and recycle nutrients. And we've also developed direct plant monitoring, which allows us to adjust the systems in response to what the plants are doing and what they want. So thinking about how that plant is photosynthesizing and giving it the light that it needs and no more. But successful production is more than just the hardware. It's actually about what you're growing as well and the selection of the varieties. I'm a plant biologist, so I'm going to spend the rest of my talk speaking about the plants and the varieties and how we're able to use what we do to produce the data that tells growers what is a better variety to grow. So variety selection is critical for productivity. This graph here shows some spinach and various different spinach varieties. And spinach isn't just spinach when you're buying it. There are many, many different varieties available. These have all been bred for open field agriculture. There are very few CEA-focused breeding programs out there producing varieties. There are even fewer, less to say near zero, that have actually commercialized any seeds out into the wider market as yet. And so what we did was we went to various different breeders, various different seed suppliers, and we worked with them to look at what their commercial offerings are, and we also persuaded seed breeders to open their cupboards and look at varieties that maybe didn't make the grade for outdoor agriculture. And we assessed these under a very simple lighting regime, nothing super fancy, no sort of crazy whiz-bang pops that we can do with our systems. And we just looked at simple, which varieties are yielding the most. And what we found actually was the older, what we're calling heirloom, open pollinated varieties, which have had less breeding focus on them, perform much, much better in terms of yield within a vertical farming situation. I'm a plant geneticist by background. A lot of this seems to come from the introgression of disease resistance that's heavily used within breeding. In the open field, which is where a lot of the breeding focus has been placed, there are challenges of disease, there are challenges of changing temperature, wildly changing water environments. Plants have to cope with that, and so the breeders have really focused on producing these robust varieties that can tolerate disease pressures and can tolerate a fluctuating environment. The older varieties are less tolerant of this, but that's a real opportunity within the vertical farming sector, is to take these older varieties and push them forward and essentially rejuvenate this ancient material that's currently out of favor with the open field growers. But, excuse me, yield is not enough. You can grow really high yielding varieties, but if they don't look good, if they don't have the quality metrics that your client, your retailer, your end consumer is looking for, it's not going to fly. So we took our 6 highest yielding varieties from the first trials that we ran, and we looked at them in terms of the commercial metrics. So in spinach, you're looking at things like leaf roll, you're looking at things like the stem to petiole, the petiole length, you're looking at stem to lamina ratio. And we found within these 6 high yielding varieties, actually 2 of them just did not make the grade. So we took the 4 further forward, and we carried out both trained panel, we carried out untrained panel, and we carried out shotgun metabolomics, so that we could look to see what was going on and whether we produced, whether these were all the same and it didn't make a difference, or whether you had different spinach varieties for different occasions. And so what you can see on this slide, there's 4 varieties in blue. You can see that on the PCA plot, they each inhabit a different quarter, which actually shows you almost have a spinach variety for every different occasion. So each different need of the food manufacturer, the retailer, you can produce different crops to satisfy those demands. Do you want something that's going to pop and really sort of make a difference and be like, the sort of the star of your show, or do you want a supporting character in your bagged salad, or in your sandwich, or wherever you find your spinach? So that was really very sort of interesting to see. And I think the really most interesting part, again, was looking at our really old varieties. The oldest variety, variety 6, which is in one of the quadrants, that was registered in 1886. It's an open pollinated variety. And when we talk to the untrained panels, which are essentially, your market, your consumers, they really noticed a difference in the flavor of this particular variety. So the other 3 you could kind of like hide in, whereas that one really made a difference. So again, new ways to find and routes to differentiate your product out. And we didn't just do our own quality assessment, we also worked with a major food manufacturer. We took them material that we'd grown and we let them compare it to their standard stuff that was coming in from open fields. And you can see the field grown versus the vertically farmed produce. It looks very different. You've got a very different sort of greenness of the leaf. You've got different sort of levels of leaf curl that you're getting. They really liked this. They particularly liked the fact that you had more texture from the leaf. And they liked the fact that there was additional flavor because that then enabled them to sort of like build that into their recipes. They also said that the produce from the vertical farm compared to the open field was much more robust than, which allowed it to sort of run through more of their manufacturing processes with much more sort of like fewer breakages of leaf, fewer sort of deterioration of quality. And that really matters when you're then putting a leaf product on a shelf. People are going to look at the bags, they're going to look through the windows, and they're going to look at what's inside, and they're going to make a judgment on your product based on that. But why do we do all of this plant science? It's not just for our own internal curiosities. I am a plant nerd and I very much enjoy this work, but there is a commercial angle to this and there is something that we can make a difference. What we do with all this data is we put it into our software as a service system. It's called Diana. It underpins all of the vertical feature farms that are installed around the UK and wider around the world. And what it does is it delivers all the data that we're producing centrally in our R&D facilities and then sort of using sort of like from wider networks to be able to produce crop production profiles. So we can link variety with light diets, with nutrient recipes to give the best quality product for the most efficient means of production as well. So thank you for listening, and I'll look forward to some questions when we all sit down together.
I find that absolutely fascinating. Thank you. Second, we have the guy who was the very first vertical farming presenter I ever heard at my own university in Bath, where I'm headed again tonight. He's co-founder and chief scientific officer of Let Us Grow in the UK, and he's working on enhancing aeroponics. Jack Farmer.
Firstly, thank you very much for that. I didn't realise that was the case. So, actually, to be fair, this conference has succeeded in making me feel like I've been doing vertical farming for a very long time. So, well done. You've made a nearly 30-year-old feel very old. Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Hopefully what I'll talk about today, obviously I will go into a bit about aeroponics. So, Jen, thank you for the amazing intro on the aeroponic talk. I'll focus a little bit more on the technology side of why it works and where it doesn't work as well. But I'll also try and dive into a little bit about what it's like to be a truly tech-only company operating in the vertical farming space and how we've lasted and how we're continuing to kind of grow from this point onwards. I think we've heard from some really, really good companies on the operator side who have pushed through this kind of valley of disillusionment I think everybody's talked about and are now really well positioned for the future. Hopefully this talk gives you a bit of an insight into what that looks like on the tech side, because there's not too many of us who have truly started out in vertical farming tech who are looking to forge a path into the horticulture industry globally. So, intro to Let Us Grow. Well, firstly, we know what we do. We are a specialist aeroponics company. We focus on designing, developing, testing aeroponic systems that can be deployed with our partners into greenhouses and vertical farms. We're quite clear that we want to be interoperable between both. There really shouldn't be a big difference in terms of the design side from an irrigation system. We're around 30 people, so compared to a lot of companies, reasonably lean, but we have been funded by venture capital to get to that point. And that's allowed us to develop these kind of patented proprietary systems that allow us to really have a beachhead in aeroponics. And hopefully you'll see why in a second, because we're focused on a particular way of doing it. We've got a track record of delivery via our container farms, so we have taken in those multiple hundreds of £1,000s worth of revenue you need to work out how not to run a project and how to run a project. So yeah, that track record is really valuable for us going forward, particularly as we choose the right business model for us as the industry develops. I wanted to, as I said, touch on the journey because, yeah, I started working on this in 2015. We really went commercial in 2017 when, to be fair, Kate and Grow Up were one of our kind of idols at the time, so it's nice to see you in the room still. We kind of went through a few different phases. We started out with patents. We didn't start out with any money, so we took a bit of a Hail Mary on our patents and hoped they worked. So we filed them first, and actually the money we raised from that allowed us to develop our first beachhead product into the market, which are these drop and grow container farms. These all use the same ultrasonic technology I'll show on the next slide. As I said, that allowed us to build track record and actually allowed us last year to launch our mass market product, which is the aeroponic rolling bench that I'll show you in a second. This is very much an irrigation technology designed for hectare scale. If you've seen a Starplast ebb and flood bench, this is a direct swap out for an aeroponic version that you can run side by side with your ebb and flood benches. So in our view, there should be no compromise for a grower who's already designed and bought an ebb and flood irrigation system if they want to also grow aeroponically. Different crops need different things, different stages of crops need different things. This is our solution to hopefully get that aeroponic system into hydroponic glass and vertical farms. And the other element as well is that through the course of this journey, much like most vertical farming companies, we built what we believe is a really good piece of software. Now, there's an interesting question for what happens when an irrigation company also has built accidentally a software company. And actually, this is a question that we're really looking to kind of, well, we believe solved this year, and I'll talk about what we're doing next with Astara. But it's a really nice light touch control system built off very much the modern kind of technology, well, the modern programming languages and the modern level of computing in terms of Raspberry Pis, and is therefore very cheap. We've also very excitingly completed our glasshouse trials at Wageningen, comparing our aeroponic and hydroponic systems, well, our aeroponic systems with conventional hydroponic systems, and look to have a paper published near the start of next year, disclosing those results in full, alongside a number of other papers that I will talk about in a second. So that's us, hopefully. The first thing to caveat aeroponics with is that I think there's a pretty good understanding within the industry that aeroponics is an opportunity to get more oxygen to your plant's root zone that allows you to generate generally higher productivity and higher yields. There's some good reasons for that, which I can dive into later, but it also has historically arrived coupled with very high maintenance loads, low resilience to failure, and effectively totally bespoke systems. Often these are nozzle-based, but sometimes they're ultrasonic-based as well. So for us, when we started the company in 2015, we really saw these as engineering challenges. We needed to get part count down, we needed to make irrigation seamless, we needed to minimize inefficient maintenance tasks, particularly on the farm. And that's the problem with nozzle-based systems, is you kind of need to go into the bed to fix anything. If the bed comes out to you, the maintenance task changes quite a lot, basically. And we also were very keen to enhance system redundancy to 1 to 2 days, bring it nearer in line with a hydroponic system as much as we can. Although we're never going to achieve the same system redundancy as a deep water culture system, of course. And the way we've done that is with the aeroponic rolling bench, with the kind of stated objective here of seamlessly integrating aeroponics into these hectare scale, fully automated glasshouse and vertical farms. Hopefully this video works, but it may or may not. I don't know if I click. Yeah, great. So as you can see here, the aeroponic rolling bench has undermounted. I don't need the sound really. Thanks. It has undermounted ultrasonic atomizers. So the transducers are powered off a power rail, a bit like a tube rail that fits underneath your rolling benches. That means your hydroponic benches roll over it, your aeroponic benches interface with it, and are therefore controlled down that power line. This is the StarPlast. We can use StarPlast, but realistically we mold our own plastic. The bench frames are the same as a StarPlast bench. It basically means you can roll this into your glasshouse or vertical farm with minimal retrofit, and you achieve about 10 centimeter aeroponic gap where your plants are growing. That gives you pretty much all the benefits of that high productivity aeroponic system, but with a base level of water at the bottom as well. That gives you system redundancy if those atomizers are turned off for any reason. So in our view, it's the best of both worlds. It's an aerohydro system. It integrates into what you've already got, and it's reasonably efficient for us to maintain, because if one of these benches shows any issues, it rolls out of the farm. We don't have to go in to fix it. In that sense, it's the same as a hydroponic StarPlast tray. So the vast majority of our validation trials are with universities. This was with Harper Adams a few years ago. We've repeated the same trial with Wageningen. This is growing microcale. The reality of doing any yield comparison trials is that they're all situation dependent. So I'm not going to tell you that this is extrapolated across all crops in all situations, but we have consistently found in glasshouse trials that you get to a given kind of quality, you get to a given spec faster when you're growing in higher oxygenated aeroponic root zone environments. This is the kind of core proposition. Get there faster get to the defined yield parameters, and you're going to get more yield per annum. Now, that was lovely to see in practice. It was very validating. We weren't crazy, but we wanted to basically put out into the literature, which we did in 2019, our reasons why we believe this was happening. And actually, there's a whole literature review we've done on aeroponics. You can go and read it. But our core theory as to why aeroponics works is this idea of this thin film replenishment cycle. So with an aeroponic system, you're spraying water onto the plant roots. That's forming a very thin film, and it's dripping off. The nice thing there is you're getting the nutrient uptake, but much like the inner surface of your lungs, the alveoli, you can get gas transport across a thin film. So you remove the limitation for gas transport from your crop in the root zone, and it's kind of going through these phases of being replenished, and you get aerosol deposits, retains, then decays off. So that's what you're doing as an aeroponic grower. The really exciting thing that we've seen is that if you get more oxygen to the root zone doesn't grow linearly fast, and it doesn't just keep getting bigger and bigger. What happens is your root zone gets to a defined kind of mass faster in the aeroponic system, and then the root-shoot ratio in the plant switches, and the plant starts allocating more resources to the shoots. That's why the yields come through, particularly around day 10 to 14. So it's been really interesting to see, because there's no literature on this. So this is what we've been exploring over the past few years. Ooh, there you go. Why I think it's particularly interesting, and from a growing perspective, can hold my hands up, plant scientist, close to agronomist, but definitely not an agronomist. The main thing for me is that you do get an element of precision irrigation that you're not going to get in different systems. You're generally aiming for an optimum in any irrigation system. In ebb and flood, I always say you're always traveling through your optimum. You're saturating the growing media, and then you're drying the media back. And really the challenge is to travel through the optimum as much as you can in a given day. Similarly, drip irrigation, very, very accurate. I do love drip irrigation, but there is this chance to oversaturate. Within aeroponics, you have a final level of control, which obviously you're weighing against the maintenance load. And of course, that maintenance load, that irrigation requirement changes through the day, so you're trying to stay in that optimum with your atomization cycle through the day. So that greater precision actually does translate to better yields. This is a higher control, basically solution for what would otherwise be quite a simple ebb and flood irrigation system. Now, to bring it into close, I guess the other element I would talk about is that different irrigation systems do actually enable fundamentally different crops to be grown. We've got another paper coming out over the course of the end of this year, which we've announced, which is whereby we've been working with the John Innes Centre to fortify salad crops with B12, with vitamin B12, which is very useful if you're a vegan or if you are, or if you're deficient in that area. Imagine going to, and effectively we've shown that if you eat these bags of salad, you get more cheaper B12 than if you're buying a supplement pill. So effectively, your vertical farm turns into a fortification machine. That's really quite valuable. And the reason that's really effective in aeroponics is that you're just dissolving that into much less water. Like if you're spraying it, there's much less water involved there. Similarly, what we've seen in the glasshouse sector, we've been hired into a number of different projects, primarily because they want to do kind of clone development. So willow cuttings, for example, potato mini tubers. These are things that you need a large root column for, and you don't want it to be connected to the soil because that's how you transmit viruses down generations. So again, niche application of aeroponics, but actually a reasonably big market if you've looked at potato mini tubers before. So we know where we're going to fit. We're going to be this specialist supplier, and we're not going to pretend to be a big engineering company, and really where we're looking to go from here into the future is what I find really interesting now. We are looking on the aeroponics side not to bring our manufacturing in-house. We are actively looking and working with the large existing engineering, procurement, construction companies, a number of whom are in this room already, who already have manufacturing partnerships in terms of plastic, steel, to effectively collaborate, license, partner on our technology and act as that kind of innovation and IP partner to help them get aeroponics out to their existing customer base. There's no, like, as I've said, hopefully we've made it as easy as possible, but they have the channels to market, they have the manufacturing infrastructure. We don't need to capture all of that. We're happy to work within our specialist lane. So that's where we're going on aeroponics. On the software side, we're actually in the process of breaking that out into its own company so it can pursue its own future within the industry, and I think we've got a really good angle for that within the lower tech part of the controlled environment agriculture industry. So if anyone knows any polytunnel growers, I'd be happy to talk to you. That's, again, all about focus. Give that its own focus and let the irrigation company really focus on working with our partners to get this to scale. So that really all comes back down to this point that I started with, that to build a technology company within our industry, we all know we're operating very low margins. Growers don't have infinite budgets. What you need to do as a tech company, in my side, is you need to stay very lean, you need to know what you're good at, and you need to be very careful as to, like in committing yourself to a manufacturing business, because there are a lot of people who do that very well already. So we have stayed focused on that core value proposition, and that's really how we're hoping to turn ourselves into a company that will be at Green Tech Vertical Farming World Conference in 20 years' time, not just 2 years' time. So yeah, I'll just end up, because I always like doing this and teasing my colleague Oscar by putting his face really large on the screen. He's actually run away, so he's gone back to Bristol, so just to avoid this slide. But genuinely, if you do want to engage with us, I've teased some of the ways here, but we're based in Bristol. We'll be at a lot of the events over the next year or so. But we're really looking to work with, on the irrigation side, with growers to run trials of the system, because we have it in trial form for people to compare against their current systems. We're looking to partner with engineering companies, and we're pretty open as to what those relationships look like. And as I said, if there's anyone who knows polytunnel growers, very happy to talk about Astara. So yeah, thank you very much, and I look forward to the discussion.
Thank you. We've got one more Jack to come. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks very much. All fascinating. And now we travel to Hong Kong, where our speaker founded Agrition in 2021 to provide subscription services for consistent demand. Jack Leung. Jack.
Hi everyone, thank you Richard for the invitation. I'm Jack from Agution in Hong Kong, and today I would like to share some of our experience in developing a subscription service model in our vertical farm in Hong Kong. And I also want to share some further thoughts on innovation about vertical farming business. First is a little story about our farm. We start in 2021, just 2.5 years now, and we start small in abandoned space from an industrial building, and we relocate into a modern farm we are seeing here, a concept farm, and we turn to an urban farm to serve the local community. And we also want to explore what vertical farming can bring to the local community. We find that in Hong Kong, many people actually don't know about anything about farming because it's an ultra urban city in Hong Kong. 99% of our food are import. They don't really see a local farm, organic farm, or vertical farm. So apart from the fresh produce we are providing, we also find that it's very valuable for us to engage with the community. They are always amazed when they see our farm, actual farm, growing some fresh greens in a closer look. They always feel very wonderful, and we want to share this knowledge and this feeling to our community. So back to the subscription service we are providing to our customers. It came from the point that we want to provide our products not only as a commodity, because food always sold in commodity form. We want to take it to the next level to bring it to a service to our customers. So each week we will deliver our selection of different greens, herbs, edible flowers, and for now even peppers and tomatoes in a reusable box. In this way, we can also minimize the packaging waste because packaging waste has been a great concern in food industry. We want to minimize the waste, so every week we deliver the greens to our customer, and every time they will return the previous box to us. So we start our first box delivery in February of 2022, and last Saturday we have completed our 86th week of delivery. So it has been more than a year. Every week, consistently we deliver to our customers. So what I heard from my customers they like about the subscription is first is the freshness, because we deliver to them right after we harvest. In the same day, we deliver to them. So it's absolute very fresh when they receive it, because we don't have to sit in the shelf or in the transportation. And the second thing they told me they like it is because of the diversity of crops. Because imagine you are a customer, when you subscribe a veggie box, you don't expect to receive whole box of lettuce every week. You will get boiled or getting too much of lettuce. So we diverse our crops into lettuce, kale, Swiss chard, and some herbs, edible flowers, and also tomatoes and peppers, which you don't usually see going in vertical farm commercially. But with the subscription model, because they will receive what we give them, so we can put some portion of special greens include in the subscription box as a combination. So here are some findings of what's the upside and downside about doing a subscription business model and vertical farming. We find that there's a lot of good sides, of course. That's why we are doing it. We find it as we have very consistent demand because we have a lot of returning customers. So once they subscribe with us, it's very likely they will stay. So it's very constant demand. So it's very important for us as a grower because we don't want to have many grains couldn't sell. And also we find we have a good customer loyalty because we are directly engaged with our customers without any middleman. So I talk to them time to time to see how they feel about our products. And they can also give us instant feedback on our products. If something is wrong or something is good, we know what was good, so we keep that. And also they will have suggestions about what crops I would like to do, I would like to eat. So it's a very interactive business model when you can talk to your customers. And also the crop management is easier when you can schedule your delivery every week. You know when is your delivery, and you can manage your crop more easily. And also less waste because we know our demand. We can plan our going schedule ahead to minimize waste. And also we have a really high flexibility in selection of different crops because our customers don't really get to choose what they get. We choose for them. So no matter what we go, we can always put into the box something. As a grower and farmer, we always want to try something new. But in the commercial world, it doesn't really work because you can only grow something you sell. But when you do a subscription model, customers always feel okay to try something new if you give them in a box. So it's a flexibility in selection of crops. And of course, the subscription model is not perfect. It comes with some limitations. For example, you need to keep your customer anxious. You cannot deliver your box in same varieties every week. People will still get boiled if you do same crops every week. So we try to bring something new or some mutation in crops to keep them anxious. And also, we do deliver our box with some local logistics. So we have to deliver a large portion of grains in order to cover the logistic costs because we cannot just deliver a box of lettuce, a small box of lettuce, to cover the logistic costs. So in this way, sometimes it's difficult to acquire some new customers compared to one-off purchase because one-off purchase is always low pressure or you can just buy it and try. But subscription requires some kind of commitment or some kind of barriers. You have to eat the whole box within a week or within 2 weeks. Not everybody in Hong Kong eat at home every day, so it has some barriers. But overall, I think it's a good model to explore when most of the vertical farm usually sell their crops to supermarket. But with subscription model, we deliver another alternative we can explore. So I've got some data on how long do our customers actually stay in the subscription. It's interesting data for me because when you see the purple one, 1 to 4 weeks, is 20%. Usually, the most drop out is in first to 4 weeks because people will find it, they don't like it, they cannot finish the grains. But as you see, when they subscribe longer in the veggie box, it's more unlikely for them to cancel. It will down to 40% when it comes to 5 to 12 weeks, and only 3% drop off after 12 weeks. And 62% of customers are still with us since they start the subscription. So I think it's really promising figures when you're doing business because you want to retain your customers. So there are some further thoughts about business innovation in vertical farming. because a lot of companies who are focused on the technology side to increase the efficiency of production or automation. But as a local grower, we feel more innovation is led in the distribution channel and also some product market fit area. For example, we deliver our grains in subscription, or we set up some pick-up machine for them to order online and pick up in the machine. And for the end product, sometimes the customers don't really want fresh produce. Some customers would like to have some dry products, vegetable powders. That's what we are trying to develop with our extra greens, because perishable products is a pain for us and also for customer, because they cannot finish in time. They would like to have some kale powder, which is as good as fresh product. And we also try some local heirloom varieties. That little bok choy is actually back to history in 1960. As long time, nobody is trying to grow it, but recently plant scientists recovered these varieties and we try to grow it in our farm in Sussex. So we find that there are lots of possibilities in different areas in vertical farming, and we hope with the better technology we can deliver more innovation and better serve the community. Thank you.
Jack, Jack, would you like to come and join us? Now, because of the current situation in Israel, Tal Lutsky has not been able to join us. So I'm going to move straight to discussion. I'm really sorry about that. I do think that next year we'll be able to talk about more. If you'd like to come back, Jack, and join us, that'd be great. About new dimensions to the industry. But we've got a lot of good stuff here, and so I'm going to concentrate on that. Jen, can I just ask you quickly, two dimensions of your business. One is going international. Is that something that's a very powerful part of your plans?
Obviously we're going where the market is taking us. Our main sort of expansion and international plans, we've got targeted geographies in the ASEAN region and in GCC. But obviously there are clients around the world who are looking to install vertical farming technology, and we are speaking to anyone who is interested in doing so.
Okay, and space?
Space, yes. Space was going to happen, wasn't it? Yes, so we've got a collaboration at the moment, Vertical Future, that involves NASA. A couple of weeks ago I was out at the Kennedy Space Center working with the plant science team out there, understanding some of the key challenges for growing plants in space.
Is that a very different world, or is it actually very similar to what you're doing in your own labs?
It's surprisingly similar,
Okay.
apart from the lack of gravity.
Okay.
Gravity is a real problem when it comes to managing how your water moves, and letting water get out into a space station is a real issue that they don't want to happen.
Okay. Jack Farmer, containers. Are you getting out of containers?
That's a good question. So we have, we're not getting out of containers. I think the reason we launched the Drop and Grow brand and launched the Drop and Grow containers was to build a beachhead into the market to demonstrate our technology. Like, fundamentally, when we started, it wasn't just that not many people were doing aeroponics. There was no one doing ultrasonic aeroponics. So that we needed a vehicle with which to demonstrate that. We've delivered to a number of really valued customers, and we're continuing to support that. And I've currently got 3 containers in the yard that we're currently deploying. But the main thing is actually that as a 30-person business, you have to prioritize.
Yep.
And if we're going to really focus on ramping up these other 2 products, it just means that we would take on less container projects in the meantime. So no need to kill that brand, and of course we're always open to working with partners who can help alleviate basically that internal resource demand. But no, we're not delivering any in particular over the next year or 2 because we're doing other things.
And is there not enough opportunity in vertical farming, or is the greenhouse opportunity just so much bigger?
Well, I think it is something like, I think we're we're about 1% of the greenhouse market in terms of size, if I'm looking at it from an irrigation perspective.
Right.
So yes, there is absolutely a much larger glasshouse market we can focus on. I think it's really about, like anyone, right? We're looking to generate long-term stability for our businesses. And so for us, there's absolutely no point keeping ourselves ideologically in one part of the sector, be cost compatible. The same people are building farms and greenhouses, work with them across the board.
And I think that's the point, isn't it? It's consumers and markets that are going to drive us all forward, rather than ideology. Yeah. Though I think the ideology of sustainability and nutrition are pretty good ones. Can we have poll number 15, just to get that on screen? And Jack Lung, price point.
Price point.
Yeah, I mean, so how much weight of produce in your pack? It's quite a big box.
Yeah, it's 700 gram per box, and we are selling it in pounds is 36 pounds.
Okay.
36 pounds. So.
And is that price competitive with home deliveries, or is that a premium offer?
I think it's valuable compared to supermarket, premium supermarket.
Yeah. And are you growing your tomatoes and peppers as well?
Yeah, tomatoes.
So you're doing, and so in your small space, you're actually able to.
Yeah, we have constantly growing around 30 different crops in our small farm.
Wow.
Because we find that diversity is really important in crops for our customers, because food is, when you have diverse food, you get happier, different colors, different crops, you can.
Yeah, I like the idea of
It's not easy to manage, but from the time we develop, we managed to grow different crops. Like just a normal farmer will do different crops in their gardens.
Yeah. Okay. Let's just see what your poll results are for this. So rediscovery, I think that's a pretty big one, and plant-based area alternatives. So I think there are new dimensions. So we'll get onto that more. Enhanced aeroponics and subscription services, less on scale, but maybe, it's changing all the time. Okay, I've got some questions from you. Do you want to comment on that, anyone?
I guess we could do. I mean, I think the next 5 years, I think I would say rediscovery probably is right, because in terms of the existing infrastructure assets that you've got deployed, like, you put a new crop variety in that, it fundamentally could change a business model, and that's very fast to do. I think what we're trying to do with aeroponics, correct me if I'm wrong, Jen.
It's interesting actually that this Jack mentioned heirloom as well as...
Yeah, I mean, there's so much that can be done in that area. I think what we're looking at with aeroponics is, if you look at my view is with vertical farming systems, we're all trending to the same optimum. If you can control the weather, you can control the lights, we're all going to end up at similar productivity levels. What we're playing at is saying, what's the fundamental next shift in limiting factors that might come then? So for me, once everyone's commoditized and is kind of growing at the same output, what then? And that's where I think we've got value.
Yeah, from a rediscovery perspective, there's seed. It's available now. You can put it straight into your business model and get it going. It's also the real opportunity to feed that into breeding programs and work for the future to ensure that the crops that are being bred and the targets that the breeders are focusing on are relevant to our sector. There was an incredible, I'm a real fangirl of this particular paper. There was a paper that came out from Harry Clay's lab at the University of Florida in 2016. They did this huge profiling of tomatoes, and they looked for specific flavors and where they were coming from, and then they worked to develop genetic markers that allowed them to breed flavor back into watery, high-yielding, commoditized varieties of today.
I went to a farm in Italy this summer, and they were breeding 500 different varieties of tomatoes. Really extraordinary.
The numbers of varieties for any crop, so I say spinach is spinach. It's not. There's so many varieties out there, and you just have to scratch the surface. If you go to just the commercial seed books that most suppliers will be working with, they'll probably have maybe 5 to 10 that they're using as a normal sort of commercial basis across most of their crop varieties. And then they'll have a load in the cupboard that they're sort of either planning on releasing or haven't, or older ones that
are becoming less favourable from either their business model, because newer varieties they can make more revenues from, or from farmer business models due to rise of diseases and such like.
I want to ask lots of my own questions. I've got lots of yours. Is aeroponics more energy intensive than ebb and flow or NFT?
If you don't offset it against yield, then probably. You've either got energy costs for running the atomizers, or you're running a higher pressurization pump than a ebb and flood pump. And if you just look at it energy to energy, you'll have a higher cost. The trade-off you're almost always trying to make is throughput relative to energy input. So if the numbers stack up and you get the yield improvements that at least we've seen, then it's a lower cost of energy per kilogram. But yeah, direct input is going to be higher.
Okay. Is Vertical Future creating a seed bank of heirloom seeds in order to protect the pre-industrial genetics? In the 20th century, we lost 93% of lettuce varieties.
So we are not a breeder. As much as my sort of base background in plant genetics would like us to be a breeder, we're not a breeding company. But we do work very closely with all the major breeders, and so they are very aware of what is going on, and they are using, so like the data that I presented, lots of that has gone back into the breeding industry, and they're then using that to make their selections from. So it's all going back in. So we are making sure that, you know, this data isn't being lost and it's being used for further developments.
How do you define multi-spectral lighting?
So our lighting has 5 different LED channels within it that cover both the visible and the invisible ranges of the spectra, and each one of those channels has 255 individual settings. So I worked it out, 255 to the power 5. It's quite a lot of individual combinations you can do with our lights.
How does aeroponics differ from other systems in terms of nutrient delivery?
I'm going to hand this one to Jack.
It doesn't.
Okay.
Fundamentally, you use the same mixing tank. It's more about the application of that dosed nutrition. At a fundamental level, what you might want to do is you might want to balance your nutrients slightly differently using that kind of core infrastructure, because whilst I've never managed to prove it either way, there is some literature that suggests you might change pH properties when in the aerosol phase. So there is some, I'd say, open question marks as to what your nutrients ends up as when it hits the plant root. But fundamentally, it's the same.
I'm going to ask you to conclude with one wish for the industry or the market, or something we should do better or pay more attention to, or even pay less attention to. But first, I'd just like to ask you, Jen, about nutrition, because I think that's something I have a belief in, but I don't know about the science on the nutrition of vertically farmed produce. What about that? Is there going to be a lot of research into how much more beneficial vertically farmed produce is in nutrition terms?
So it's quite disparate at the moment, the research base on it. There's a number of academic papers out there, and there's obviously in-house research that various different vertical farming companies are doing. All of the sort of published data shows that basically there is no difference in the nutritional profile of a vertically farmed crop to a conventionally produced crop. That's something that we get asked quite a lot about. Like, surely it's not as nutritionally beneficial because it's not grown in soil. There's a lot of data out there that shows that's not the case. But as Jack was mentioning,
so there's no negative, but there's not enough positive.
No, there's plenty of positive as well. As you know, Jack was mentioning, you can biofortify, you can tailor your nutrient mix in order to make sure that your crop is taking up specific nutrients that might not normally be present in the soil. So, for example, like you can enrich with selenium. Selenium's not particularly prevalent in soils, but plants will readily take it up. So by providing that in, you can do that. Other areas you can look at are sort of in the realm of alternative proteins. There are many plant proteins that are used in the market that do not offer a complete protein, but there are some plants that do produce complete proteins. And so there's areas of research out there which are looking at basically pushing that forward in order to provide that added value from that plant.
Do you mind if I jump in on that, actually?
Yeah, please. I mean, is biofortification a big future?
I think it is. I mean, I think the misconception with plant nutrition is that we often look at plants as kind of big bags of nutrients and water, and we're pushing water and nutrients into them, whereas actually, whilst they're not obviously human, they are beings with their own behavior. So effectively, a plant will, if you give the plant the same nutritional profile in water and in soil, it will draw what it needs from that profile. What historically has tended to happen when in systems that have been characterized as watery or low nutrition is that there's an incomplete nutritional profile accessible to the plant. And of course, if we add things like B12, what we're doing is we're just enhancing the profile of nutrients available to the plant beyond what would be in the soil naturally. So, you've got to remember some of these are actively transported into the plant, and therefore it's actually what the plant has available that matters, not the system. It can be the same. If we put B12 in the soil, it would come out of the soil.
Jack, thank you for coming over. Thanks for contributing to us. Is there a wish? Is there something you've learned? Is there something that you feel you want to say as a parting shot?
For me, urban farming or vertical farming is all about people, because people need to get the awareness of why we are doing vertical farming and what vertical farming can benefit them. I think that's very important. That's what we always try to communicate with our audience.
So we have a social purpose?
Yes, social purpose, definitely. It's what I have seen in Hong Kong, because people are so happy when they can get just a farm in their local community. It makes a huge difference.
Okay. Do they come and visit you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They can.
No, I mean, do they come and visit you?
Yeah, they do.
Do your subscribers, do you have a sort of...
Yeah. They come to us, to visit us, attend a workshop or events.
Okay.
So
you're a community?
Community
Good.
building is important in farming.
Jack?
That's a really good one. I would say, if I had one wish, I think if I'm honest, the vertical farming industry has moved a long way in the last couple of years, and I would say is broadly following what I would want it to do, which is like there's a group of companies, particularly as operators, I would say people are focusing on the core profitability and they're starting to work together more. I think that's fundamentally what needs to happen for the industry to work. Some of the best bits about vertical farming are the kind of mission-driven elements. And I think that can now really be brought to the fore because people are working together and because these are stable businesses.
So in a way, you're saying the decks have been cleared and the people here now are getting on with it?
Yeah, I think exactly. We need to get on. Like fundamentally, no vertical farm is ethical unless it's operated to its maximum capacity with renewable energy, right? So like, if you accept that truth, then the most important thing you can do is run them properly. And yeah, we just are waiting, like as a tech company, we live off the back of the greenhouse and vertical farming growers. So the better they do, the better for us.
Jen?
I would say sort of my wish is to, for us as a sector to be able to dispel the myths. There's a lot of untruths in vertical farming and around, people have a lot of preconceptions about the number of people who've said to me about the nutritional quality of the crop and saying, surely it's not as good as soil grown because soil surely provides a complete nutrition. Being able to dispel those myths, being able to dispel the myths around energy intensity and environmental impact. These are all areas that people have presented on today and yesterday about, and we are working as a sector and we are starting to do that. But we need to really get out there and communicate more with, not just consumers and sort of like retailers, but also with, the funds who are backing our sector as well.
Thank you. We have a great story to tell, and we have had 2 days of great storytellers. Thank you very much to Jack and Jen. So we conclude the formal presentation part of the Congress now. We have a lunch break. Please be back for the roundtables at 1:45 if you're able to join us. And I think that just gives us a chance to have a bit more interactive discussion on some key topics for you. But I'm going to say thanks to our technical team for your amazing support with live streaming and online and everything else. And thanks especially to Francesca and Matilda for making it all happen. Thank you. Thanks to our speakers, thanks to our sponsors, thanks to all of you. Safe travels home, those of you who are going during the lunch break. But otherwise, hope to see lots of you back for the roundtables. Thank you.